I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And Elijah Schaffer and Sarah Stock, the scandal kind of emerges. We talked about it at the beginning of the last show, but all the details are kind of out. We're going to talk about some of the implications before we get into geopolitics, religion, and MAHA.
Yes, and though I'm not a big fan of drama, chisme, which means gossip in Spanish, I guess we have to cover it because it does impact. It goes into the whole civil war that's happening right now on the right.
Well, I think less the Civil War and more the kind of the social dynamic of conservatives in general, especially in the social media space.
And those that take advantage of ideals that are good and should be followed, but not in the way a lot of them are proposing. Before we start, also, thank you for being here. And also, please don't forget to subscribe. We are getting closer to 1,000 subscribers, so it really does help us out. And also comment. If you subscribe, you can comment, and we read all of them. So make sure to let us know what you think and get engaged and involved in the conversation.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of lives.
Okay, let's get into the headline story there. And we got quite a few articles in a row to kind of flush the whole situation out, I guess you could say.
Yep.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And yes, right now X is half consumed by what is happening between Elijah Schaffer and conservative influencer Sarah Stock. Leah Sapienti says, quote, conservative influencer Sarah Stock has now deleted her social media after accusations of an affair with another conservative influencer, Elijah Schaffer, occurred. Elijah Schaffer is currently making odd posts and has been for a while on his X account after his wife left him and took his kids. People suspect he is on substances in video clips as they don't make sense.
Okay, before we got actually into the article, I wanted to talk a little bit about it because I think both of these figures are more fringe figures that a lot of people might not be aware of. So Sarah Stock actually works for Elijah Schaffer that has I would say, small conservative media company, very small. He used to work for The Blaze. I used to watch him a lot during The Blaze time. I thought he was a little bit more mainstream, still far right, but not as far right as he went after he got off of The Blaze. I used to really like him on The Blaze, watched him a lot, but I watched him less and less as he got on his own. But I guess he was pretty big. He had hired her in as a commentator. His wife also worked with him. They had kids. They were highly religious, highly in the conservative space. So the fact that he had an affair with her was pretty shocking, number one. But all the other allegations that are kind of stacking up from, what's the gentleman making most of that?
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yeah, Milo Yiannopoulos, who seems to have a dossier on not only every conservative commentator, but every commentator in general.
He's like the Epstein of conservative influencers, essentially.
Definitely.
Without all the other, as of now, disgusting allegations. Some are out there about Milo, but I'm not going to get into that. But yes, Elijah Schaffer has been, and even when he was at The Blaze, he was a pretty controversial figure. He had a show with Sydney Watson where they kind of went against each other in a lot of senses. Sydney Watson, I mean, in my opinion, came out as a raging feminist afterwards. But a lot of allegations were made against him during his time at The Blaze. And that kind of got swept under the rug after they fired him. The Blaze kind of moved on without him. The Blaze is Glenn Beck's network or online network or online project, I guess you would call it. And he moved on. He created Rift TV, which now a lot of people are calling Grift TV because that is essentially what apparently he has been doing, given that he has not been following in his what he considers his conservative,
Well, he espoused those beliefs all the way until the scandal kind of came up. So I don't know if you're going to say he's not doing it. He was definitely espousing it, and people that watched him would.
But he wasn't actually doing it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it looks like potentially not. Then again, he is talking about firing back. He's looking to do a series of interviews. He says this is a smear campaign. So there's two sides to every coin. We will try to give both sides, but it's going to be severely outweighed because there's so much kind of drama stacking up against Elijah right now, and that's what we're going to kind of go into.
But as of now, at least right now, this hour, everything is allegations. It's all just in the allegations realm. People have been, Sarah Stock deleted her ex, and Elijah Schaffer has kind of stopped ex tweeting, and then he started again. But we still don't know what is fully true and what isn't, I would say.
Well, she likes to say allegations all the time. We're not going to show the video evidence because the video was a little bit too graphic as far as the language goes. You can find it on X if you want, but it's pretty much a black room with just the audio of Elijah talking to his wife. It was pretty severe, but in a marriage, sometimes it gets severe.
It's unknown if he was talking to his wife or if it was a voicemail or if it could have been AI generated. So that's why I'm trying to be still like nothing has been fully confirmed, just to keep on that side of the coin as well.
Okay,
But we are going to talk about what people have said. Again, do you want me to read the messages?
No,
or-
I want you to play the video actually.
Okay.
No one believes me that my life doesn't make any sense right now.
You
But this is the way
you
back
can
to
stop
my
it.
hotel.
We need a pretext what we're going to play before we play
I know,
it.
but I had to click it so it would come up.
Okay, so this video, he was actually in El Salvador of all places. You said he thought he moved down there. I wasn't sure. There's kind
Well,
of
he was there for a while.
there's conflicting information coming out, but this is what at a hotel he was at in El Salvador. His behavior looks kind of odd, especially when you pair it with a lot of the other messages and a lot of the other information coming out. It looks like, yes, possibly he's on drugs, possibly he's drinking. Let's go into the video.
And he has
though.
admitted before that he had issues with drinking, for example.
No one believes me that my life doesn't make any sense right now. But this is the way back to my hotel room, and it doesn't make any sense. I now have to leave my hotel room because of a flood. This is very weird. But what's going on here, okay? Very bizarre. So there's some, I guess, some water moving here. Okay, cool. Won't walk in that. My feet are wet. And then we got some flooding, I guess. Okay, it's falling on me. But what even is going on?
And you can pause it for a sec. This looks like it's probably the basement of the hotel, most likely, considering where the water leaks are. He would actually have to go down there to film all this and start kind of walking through this. It was kind of pointless for him to do this, and a lot of the commentary just looks a little bit odd, and especially for him to post it and then remove it.
No one believes me that my
You can
thing,
fast forward.
okay?
It looks like he's
He said
down
to,
where the
like,
conference
take a
is at.
seat
That would be the basement.
and actually rest. But then I have some what? Some Diet Dr. Pepper? No one believes me.
Okay, and you can leave it there. We'll go into a little bit of the actual messages and stuff like that a little bit.
And I mean, his coming from a Latin American country, it is common that things like that happen. Remember when we first were coming down, we stayed at a kind of older hotel that had clearly been ravaged by floods just because it was on our way. But his reaction to it, I guess, like, why is he walking around? Who knows? But he seems confused of all things. But Abby Libby here has some of the posts from Elijah Schaffer when people were wondering what was going on and why he was acting so odd. She says, quote, "These are his deleted posts. I have a horrible suspicion that Elijah Schaffer has ended his family with the GUN he
Yeah,
claims is
and
stolen."
none of that is actually true. A lot of the posts we have strange commentary at the top from the actual people. I wanted to go more into the posts themselves.
Okay, so Elijah Schaffer, for example, said, "I do not know where my wife and kids are, and I can't go all the way. Can't get a hold of them. They are filed as missing persons. They have gone missing. Confirmed someone in my household set me up. They planted substances, and I said I was a criminal. This will be a public trial by the FBI." And he has been fighting in a way with the FBI after allegations he also made.
Well, all this came out kind of in El Salvador, so people were a little panicked when he first released this. It looked like none of this was true. His wife and kids actually left him. She took the kids. It's unclear if she took the car because he registered his car as stolen and then got it back later. He has had an ongoing feud with the FBI and Kash Patel specifically, and Kash Patel's girlfriend that it has an ongoing lawsuit against him. So I'm sure Elijah's side is the FBI is trying to sit me up. I don't think it looks like that, or I think it could possibly be both. Meaning, I think it definitely looks like he's having an alcohol and substance problem, as well as I'm sure it doesn't help when the the head of the FBI's girlfriend has a case against you.
And he had also posted this: "I am a victim of a serious targeted felony crimes. I do not want to end myself. They have kidnapped my family. They have stolen my money. I will bring justice. I need the public to know." He's in Virginia, but allegedly the government is aware. "I believe the FBI is trying to destroy my life and end me."
Yeah, I mean, even if that's true, if he was on drugs and alcohol, I mean, your mind can spiral out of control, and I can see that's what kind of happened there.
And
I
paranoia
would think,
also
and paranoia.
comes
Paranoia
up a
would
lot.
play into it immensely. If he was sober, I don't think he would have posted those. Even if he went down those rabbit holes in his head, he wouldn't probably want to make that public information.
And in a way, I think this is a spiral we see often with both celebrities, but also influencers now who have become quasi-celebrities, or at least well-known to the public. And I mean, not to excuse his behavior, at least the things we know he probably did do, but the pressure and the eyes on you and the hate and the everything, and then getting fired from the Blaze, etc., that has led him and has led others to this kind of behavior. Like, this is not the first time that insane things come out about someone that people would consider like very conservative, or a very, at least, interesting commentary figure. Again, he was pretty, out there, and he did say some outrageous things, but that is allowed under the First Amendment.
Yeah, and even though I didn't like all of his content, the fact that he really blew off the doors, kind of like Nick Fuentes, he said things and really expanded the boundary of free speech. So the stuff in the middle, everybody can kind of talk about. And I think that's why free speech is so broad today. That being said, oh God, there was something else I wanted to say there. Why don't we go into Sarah Stock there?
And Sarah,
What I was going to say was, because he so conservative, he espoused conservative values with his wife, his family, his kids, very religious values too. This was a cornerstone of his show. If he did have a drinking and substance abuse problem, he was definitely going to keep that secret. So this would have added a strange element to it as well.
But what is interesting is that months before, and even a few years ago, he did admit he had a drinking problem and that he was trying to get better. He was trying to, get closer to God, and he actually helped. I don't remember the name of the trainer, but he had one of the famous trainers was helping him get back on track and get his health back up. And interestingly, I think that is when, because the Sarah Stock thing was around the same time. So the timing is also interesting. But
Well, I would kind of bring up one other thing, and it's maybe the elephant in the room nobody's kind of talking about, because he hasn't always been in shape. Like, for the most part, he wasn't. There's a good chance he is on steroids or was on steroids, and that would make him extremely emotionally volatile, especially if he was drinking. So, because to this day, he's still denying he used any kind of substances other than alcohol. But what could make you emotionally unstable are definitely steroids. A lot of people that use steroids don't consider them to be substance abuse. And if you mix that with alcohol, I mean, you could have high ups and low lows, especially if things start going wrong.
And then the other side of this drama and the coin is Sarah Stock, which, if a lot of you probably know her from another drama that went on X when she got engaged. She posted a picture of her ring, and then all the other conservative e-girls came out to either try to defend her or bash her because her ring was too small. And it became this kind of girly, annoying drama. But a lot of people did get involved, and a lot of people, in my opinion, were exposed as well, and they started calling each other names. Then the drama devolved into exposing things about not her, but other people. Interestingly, this never came out, or at least not fully as it has now. But again, she has been involved in other drama before, but she does fall into the realm, I would say, of like conservative e-girl.
Well, I think this is the much broader conversation here, and the much more interesting conversation. I started with Elijah just because he's much more well known than she is. She's just kind of coming up. A lot of people don't know who she is, so I kind of wanted to give context of who she was in this situation. But there's a much broader conversation about trad wives, e-girls, the conservative community in general, what marriage is. So let's especially because the kind of photos she was posting. I mean, the Pope literally blessed her marriage, and they have a picture of it, which, let's go into
the
everything.
people I feel the worst and that I actually feel for is Elijah Schaffer's wife and her now hopefully ex-husband.
Absolutely. And I think Elijah Schaffer's wife is a little bit more thick-skinned than Sarah Stock's husband. Sarah Stock's husband, we have some information on him, but I feel really, really bad for him. And I just don't think he had as much life experience, and this really blindsided him, and it really knocked the wind out of him.
Let's see an opinion about all this from Beryllium Live. Quote, Sarah Stock and the Tradcath industrial complex are just another type of fed slop or feed slop, let's be honest. And I would say not just Tradcath, but all the trad wife area and space. I did a whole video about it in Spanish one time, comparing the feminists to the trad wives online that make money out of that, and how they're not as different as they'd like to claim.
Yeah, and this is just a short clip out of a much longer video he did. It was a pretty good video, so I just took a clip out of it because it kind of summarizes the entire thing.
Sarah Stock's brand was the trad thing. And this should be a valuable lesson for everybody, which is that, yeah, the trad thing isn't real. It's not real. There's a reason why your favorite trad influencer girl will post her making sourdough bread and with the wedding ring or at mass or in the kitchen or with the kids or whatever. There's a reason she'll post that and the husband is nowhere to be found. It's the same reason why on the porno set, they don't turn the camera around and show all the lights and the sound peoples because it ruins the fantasy. It's porn. It's pornography. You think that you've replaced your porn habit with these based trad influences. No, 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 no. It's just a different form of pornography. It's the same thing with your favorite male big muscle daddy trad Christian influencers. It's not real. It's meant to give you dopamine. It's not real, okay? Sarah Stock's brand.
Yeah, and I think that was a pretty good take there. And you very often will see, because women in the social media influencer space have much, much, much faster growth than men, especially if they pair themselves by themselves, not with a male counterpart or not with their husband. The opposite of what we kind of do.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's right where my husband is. You can see him. You can see. Oh, where's my hand? Well, I don't know.
You know, your hand's not big enough.
That's where my husband is. I don't do that. Well, I do my Spanish show by myself, but only because you don't speak Spanish yet.
Yeah,
Hopefully one
our
day.
Spanish channel was originally our English channel, but when we moved to Mexico from Canada because the government went crazy, we were getting no push into an English sphere because we're broadcasting out of Mexico. So we changed that to a Spanish channel. You speak Spanish, so you're able to keep
I'm
that
from
channel
Mexico.
going. But that channel got quite a few followers. We're at around 11,000 compared to this channel. So I didn't want to abandon it totally.
Yeah, but I will also say with the whole influencer. Traditional influencer, if you have time and you're doing the whole influencing thing, then you're not actually taking care of your marriage and you're not actually living by the standards that you are trying to set, not just for yourself, but for everybody else. And that is one of my major issues with that. I never come on here and pretend to be, fully trad. I always say I'm not religious, but I understand the importance of religion in Western societies and I defend that. But I think a lot of people wish it was true and exactly the illusion, wish that illusion was true and feed into it, but that doesn't actually help the cause or to show what an actual traditional, if you want to call it, lifestyle would be, because if they were fully traditional, they wouldn't be on social media.
Yeah, another big example of this, not necessarily in the TradCon space, but in the MMA space, is a female MMA commentator that started interviewing fighters, and she would outright flirt with them in like very, very obvious ways, start doing jujitsu, but in somewhat sexual ways and things like this. Her name was Nina Drama, but the camera guy was her husband. It was just a very awkward situation, especially when certain fighters were asking her to stay in their hotel for the night, and her husband's actually the camera guy. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of another example of this, of putting the woman up front and keeping her husband or the real situation kind of off camera, so people will buy into the illusion.
And also money is a fickle mistress. And also, I mean, a lot of, I'm guessing, influencers, especially on the conservative side, do have a tendency to get influenced by exactly that, by just wanting to make as much money as possible and lose themselves along the way. We talk all the time about people that are actually being paid by X, Y, or Z entities, and that makes, and it compromises their actual beliefs and what they actually espouse.
Yeah, I would appreciate, I appreciate much slower growth, but it's actually the real person that's making the content there. I mean, I watch a ton because I do a politics news show. Most of the people I was watching since they had maybe 100 or 500 subscribers. Now they have hundreds of thousands, but it's interesting to see their growth and the different paces in which they grew. Did their character change over time? Are they the same person? Stuff like that. Yeah. Let's go into the next little thing about Sarah Stock though here.
And Brian Atlas just says, well, not literally, and I don't know what he means, but...
well, this is her.
Yes, this is her.
And I just wanted to kind of bring a clip up of her and what she's kind of espousing here.
The garlic salt on everything, and then people just started to all tell me I'm pregnant. That would literally be impossible because I'm not married yet. So no, I'm not pregnant. Maybe I'll let you guys know when I am pregnant, but probably not, because last time I made an announcement about my personal life, all the e-girls started coming for me.
Okay, and this was an interesting take here because she told her husband that she was a virgin right up until the day they were married. That ended up becoming not true. Also, there is another layer of rumors saying that Elijah may have got her pregnant. There may have been an abortion. Again, this is completely in the rumor space, especially when we're dealing with, oh God, what's his name?
Elijah?
No. Milo
Yiannopoulos.
Yiannopoulos. You can never be 100% sure what's true, what's not. He also is saying he's only released 1/10 of the documents. He said he's not going to release any documents with Elijah's wife. I think that's a good call on his part. That being said, you got to wonder what else is he actually going to release, because he has released a lot of pretty salacious things at this point.
And also asking ourselves, what does Milo gain from all of this? And I mean, I think he's the one that benefits and gains the most out of these kinds of drama that he eventually gets involved into. I do find him funny. I used to watch him a long time ago when he was going to universities and etc. I do think he inserts himself too much into it, but at the same time, it is a good pressure gauge to when things need to be exposed about people that a lot of other people trust and send their money to as well, which, let's not forget, these people get donations. I mean, Elijah gets super chats and donations for his Rift TV thing, and Sarah Stock right there too, and also on her own channel and social media space. And what does this mean for all the people that have been, believing what they say and have been feeding into their whole traditional lifestyle when it wasn't actually true?
Well, yeah, let's be transparent exactly who Milo is, and he's pretty transparent with it. So he was on Timcast. He started a bit he's in the political space, political influencer space, and he is paid by big companies, big business, big donors, whether that's government or not, to expose people. So he's in the business of keeping dossiers on people when certain entities want to get people kind of out of the space. He attempts to kind of smear them and expose them.
Just to clarify, he was on Timcast recently, but he never worked with Timcast.
No.
Yeah, he did his own thing and would tour universities and destroy.
No, he actually has a company.
Now he does.
Yeah,
yes, but beforehand he came up through going to debate at universities.
Yeah, but that's not who he is now.
No, I know.
Who he is now is somebody that keeps dossiers on people and exposes them for money. And he said that outright. So,
and somebody made a good AI representation of what goes on with the whole trad wife.
Yeah, this was really funny, and it hit it on the mark, I would say.
It says when she has Christ is King in her bio. Let's remember Candace.
Oh, thank you, brother. God bless you.
Dude, she's the real deal.
Men of honor deserve women of virtue.
She's perfect, bro.
Another easy 600. Trad queen's got to eat.
So pure, bro. Look at her pray hands.
Sending 50. Worth it.
3 roses. She'll notice me for
Take your
sure.
heart, Jake. You're such a gentleman. Y'all are such blessings. Back to the garden now. Trad wife cosplay page.
Every night, across living rooms like this, young conservative men embark on a sacred ritual, simping. Their muse, a virtuous bread-baking trad angel on live stream.
Aw, thank you, brother.
Oh, thank you, brother. God.
Yeah, and I think that hit that kind of the nail on the head, not just for Sarah, because I don't want to just pick on her, but Elijah has espoused religious and conservative values, on a daily basis and to an extreme about his wife and his kids. So for this to come out, potentially drugs, alcohol, drinking problem, maybe steroids, and then cheating on his wife, on both sides, they were portraying something they definitely probably were not.
And I will say, and I will ask, especially those that do follow these kinds of, trad wife, conservative e-girls that are not women, because they do have a lot of female followers that want to emulate that as well. And I would also say to them, but especially to the men, what difference, how different is it from an OF, if you were following an OF account and, projecting yourself into that, but they are doing it with their morals and their values. And that, in my opinion, is a little bit even worse than OF.
I don't think so at all.
Yes, because they're enticing people to pay them for morals and values and virtues that they don't themselves follow, but trying to emulate as if they did, and making a lot of men, but also women who want to, contribute monetarily as well, think that is what they're putting their hard-earned money into when it's actually not.
Yeah, I would say it's something completely different, and I wouldn't say all trad influencers are that. This is one example of that, but it is emulative of a lot of probably the trad wife community, but not all of it, number one. But number two, I think it's a step up from OF or actual corn, definitely. And I think it appeals more to probably religious conservatives that are trying to stay away from direct corn.
I know, but is it, the similarities are pretty...
The similarities are similar, but you're trying to say that one's way worse, and it's not worse
because
at all.
it's playing with people's actual morals and values and virtues and pretending to be something that they're not, and also receiving money and sometimes even asking for money and donations by lying to people.
Okay.
By saying that they're following, religious scripture or whatever when they're actually not.
Yeah.
If they were, they wouldn't be, number one, asking for money, but number two, even online trying to do that.
Yeah.
Anybody that does want to, preach the Bible or scripture should do it for free, in my opinion.
Well, it wouldn't be for free because YouTube would be paying them anyway.
Yes, but they're not asking people to donate to them.
Okay, let's keep going here.
Speaking of,
I'm
not going to read the caption, but this is a photo of when...
Oh God, it's not a good photo though, because the Pope's actually standing right in front of them right here and blessing their marriage. No, you don't have to look for it, but
that is a husband, unfortunately. And then this is one of the updates on him, allegedly.
Yeah, I wanted to give the update on him because this is actually the person I feel the worst for in this situation. I think this is the one that was hit the hardest. I think now Elijah's wife's going to be hit pretty hard, but I think she'll get a divorce settlement. She's also probably going to get the kids. She has a thicker skin. She's been through more of life. This kid's completely blindsided this kid. I would suspect he lived a pretty sheltered existence and bought into a lot of this, and it absolutely devastated him. So my heart does go out to him, but you can give the update.
So Elijah Mack says, quote, he's currently hospitalized with ending himself ideation. His life has been utterly torn apart. If we're going to throw money at a mom who said the N-word, we might as well throw money at this guy to help him out and rebuild his life. He says, I'm mutuals with a big theology account there, and that's how you know.
Yeah, and this is part of growing in life. It's just a shame it has to happen in such a public way. The conservative community is kind of really showing its colors here. They're coming after him really hard online because he thought she was a virgin. Yeah, his mistake for actually believing that. Any woman that's going to tell you that is probably not a virgin. But I mean, some guys are going to be extremely gullible. He was obviously gullible. I don't agree with people going after him in any way, shape, or form. I remember when I was young, I bought into a lot of different things. Maybe not that, but we've all been gullible at one point. We just didn't have to experience it in this very, very public way and have massive online hate come his way when he's not even an influencer. It was his girlfriend that's an influencer. So if people want to give her hate, she's kind of already stepped in the ring and in that realm and should grow a thick skin and deserves what she gets.
Yeah, and he hadn't decided to be a public person.
Yeah.
And then for his heartbreak and his finding out to also be, publicized, but then even worse, being criticized for it, that does show the true colors of, again, whose morals, values, and virtues are aligned with what.
Well, and it's not necessarily so much the conservative community, it's really the red pill community. And I was talking to you about this the other day, and I mean, you hate the red pill community, but I watch it because I have a political show. It's really evolving.
I think it leads to things like this.
It's really evolving at this point. Certain influencers with certain ideas, I would say, like Elijah Schaffer, like a Myron Gaines, who espouse, you need to get yourself a virgin, you need to have $1 million to be a real man, to provide.
Which is going to leave men alone.
That's kind of falling out of, I would say, popularity. Number one, because it's toxic and it just doesn't make...
It doesn't work.
It doesn't make complete sense when you really dig into it. Who's kind of replacing those influencers is more somebody like Andrew Wilson that's in the debate space that I think has better first principles and explains those first principles a lot better. And is something that normal men can espouse to rather than trying to have $1 million and find yourself a virgin, this and that.
Which is what I initially don't like about the red pill community, the fact that they're putting unattainable goals and then men just end up more in despair and more helpless.
I will say a lot of what the red pill community does espouse is good. I would say it's a 50-50 mix. The problem is
like a 20-80 mix.
It's that other 50% that is just completely false. And when you weave the two together, it really confuses, especially young men. So I'm glad to see that community kind of evolving, and a lot more of the thought leaders that were behind the scenes are starting to come to the surface. They're starting to kind of take control of that community now. You had a lot of the more people that were willing to say absolutely salacious things, the most toxic things that weren't really true, kind of come to the top of the community and then take over the community.
The provocateurs, like
the provocateurs.
Elijah and
Yeah, Elijah was definitely one of them.
But in came Milo as well, number one provocateur during all of this drama, and he said, quote, "I'm in touch with Elijah. I've told him to get off the internet for a couple weeks and go to rehab." I mean, that is salient advice. "It's better for everyone to just rip the band-aid off, so I'll share with you over the next few hours info doing the rounds in private, or at least what I've been able to confirm." And that second bit is what I don't fully agree with, because feeding into the drama, what good does it do? But exposing people, also important when they're, again, duping people into thinking they're one thing when they're not.
Yeah, and we won't read all the comments here. If you want to, just go on X, type up Elijah Schaffer. All this will come up. A lot of it's very seedy, and the audio tape. We will definitely get banned if we play the audio tape. It's just too many 4-letter expletives. Yeah.
Him insulting people. And funnily enough, for the longest time, a lot of people still don't like him. I don't fully like him. I think he also tries to be a provocateur, but it's James Lindsay who came up with this theory of the woke right and how it parallels to what the left has been trying to do, especially when it comes to certain, Catholic or conservative influencers that espouse that kind of rhetoric. And he came in, of course, as well.
Oh, James
but
Lindsay
this was all the way back.
The other clip I have, James Lindsay is actually involved in a scandal with Elijah Schaffer. We'll bring that one up in just a moment, because I don't like James Lindsay as much as you do.
I don't like him. I just think he was more right now that we see what's going on with Candace, Tucker, Elijah, etc. And this was from all the way back in 2025, but he said, woke right youth recruiter Elijah Schaffer competes with Temple and Aaron McIntyre for the wildest conspiracy theories about why I'm calling out the woke right, joining the woke left, and falsely accusing him of being involved in...
Yeah, I didn't even realize the quote at the top. I mainly just got it for the clip. This is Elijah's show. She worked for Elijah, so they worked on the show together. I just wanted to kind of show a clip, so if people didn't know who they were, they would get kind of an idea here.
And we used to be friends, like honestly, we used to be friends. Him and I hung out with some people from a sex cult, for a while, Nixium, which was a cult of the female orgasm that he got in trouble.
And he's talking about James Lindsay here, actually.
For James Lindsay did. I don't know if you know what this whole. Do you guys know what the scandal was?
No, I haven't. It's the first time I heard about this.
Yeah. So Nexium was. Do you remember Nexium, the sex cult, the one from New York? Okay.
Earl is refusing to answer.
Well, so I did a speaking tour paid for by Russian state television, which I found out later, which is not good. With James Lindsay. No, I mean, I just spoke at a thing. I didn't take any money from them directly. I didn't get paid. I just spoke there. And so it was paid for by Russia during the election during COVID. And I spoke on stage. I was there with James Lindsay and one of the members of the sex cult. Now, if you don't remember, it's the girl from Smallville is the one who got nabbed, right?
Yeah,
remember
the blonde-haired girl.
Yeah, so it was like her girlfriend or whatever.
Okay, I remember now.
Yeah. And the problem was, I was smart and I was like backstage, like, yo, I'm not going to take pictures with like the members of the vaginal orgasmic sex cult.
I don't think we can continue to play it.
He just gets into what James Lindsay was involved in.
Okay.
I don't know if you're trying to protect James Lindsay.
No, I haven't seen this clip. I'm just thinking YouTube is not going to be happy about this.
Pretty, like, it's probably not a good idea to be like in a room.
Okay, you can kind of leave it there if you want.
Because she's not saying much.
He does. He gets into exactly what James Lindsay. Oh, it's more about him and James Lindsay, actually.
Oh, okay. Because you said you wanted to see the interaction between those two.
No,
Elijah and Sarah.
No, I just wanted to show a clip of when she was on the show with him, but I actually wanted to show the clip which was about James Lindsay, which you tried to make him look good there by
I didn't try to make him look
by
good.
reading
He
the
started
caption.
saying things that we were not supposed to play on YouTube.
James Lindsay was involved with
Allegedly.
No, he was there taking pictures with all
So
the
was
women
Elijah.
from this cult. So
I've seen the pictures, yes. I'm not trying to defend him. Again, I say I don't agree with most of the things James Lindsay says or how he goes about things, but I do think his theory about the woke right is more true than not. And we're seeing it as it develops, and Candace spirals out and everybody spirals out on that side that was trying to defend certain things. But someone that did come out, funnily enough, and speak about this is Matt Walsh.
And Matt Walsh actually did a good take here, and it's a much longer segment in his show. They didn't clip the segment. I thought they should have definitely clipped the segment, but it's the first segment in his show. I think it lasts about 30 minutes. So he went pretty in depth here. This is just a clip from that, but it was a very good take.
Can you just stab me? How about that? You want me to go to your cocktail hour? How about instead you just stab me in the face to death? I don't know. I don't know these people. I don't talk to them. I don't go to the events. If I do go, it's just to give a speech and leave. Never go to the after parties. I've been to CPAC a couple of times. I mean, we were there last year. We did a podcast from the stage. Not going to like an after party. No. if there's a party or a cocktail hour or whatever, and I always want to avoid those, but sometimes, especially when I'm speaking, they'll say, well, we got this cocktail hour ahead of time. Would you want to go to that? And my answer is, can you just stab me to death instead? Can you just stab me? How about that? You want me to go to your cocktail hour? How about instead you just stab me in the face to death? Can we do that instead? That's my counter. But sometimes you got to go. It's all part of the thing. So, and I prefer to bring my wife to those kinds of things. Anyway, all that to say, these kinds of scandals are not uncommon in society generally and in the media business especially.
Okay, and that wasn't the best clip. You actually grabbed that clip. I watched the full segment just before we went on the air, and he does go in depth. Very good segment, and he talks about marriage and the dynamic in the conservative community of promoting marriage and why marriage is a good thing. Because the scandal is scaring a lot of men off from a marriage and things like that in general.
And more of these scandals coming out as well. But again, look at who the people are and what their actual motivations were before you write off all of marriage and all of women as well.
Yeah, but the conservative community, especially surrounding CPAC, there seems to be a lot of alcohol, a lot of scandals, always surrounding CPAC and that CPAC weekend. He had the good take. I no longer drink. You don't drink. I think that naturally keeps a lot of people out of these scandals that don't drink or don't use substances.
Yeah. But for example, with you and I mean, we basically don't go anywhere without each other, and we just work and do this together and do most things together.
It's a pretty boring life, to say the least.
Pretty boring life. But Elijah Schaffer did reply to Matt Walsh, or did say something about at least what Matt Walsh said recently. He said, quote, "What's done in darkness will be shown in the light. I honestly gave my life to God a few months ago. We've all done things that we shouldn't be doing, some more than other. Publicly stone me. You won't take my hate. You won't make me hate myself for what I repented of. Expose it all. It's healing to me. Post my nether region even."
Yeah, and that was just one of a series of tweets Elijah put out. I believe it was last night. He just came back online. So I just wanted to say he is fighting back. And a lot of these are allegations. And the FBI and him have had a major spat just a few months ago. So that could have something to do with it. I'll wait to see both sides. Today, we've kind of showed one side. Elijah specifically said he's going to do a tour of different podcasts and give his version of the story. When he does,
it's great publicity.
Yeah, when he does, we'll kind of talk about his side of the story as well.
And again, with that being great publicity, what are the actual motivations?
Well, and he's not one of those figures you're going to be able to cancel. He said so many radical things on his show, even though he was espousing Christian and conservative values. He has probably a loyal radical following as well that will follow him even after this scandal. So I don't expect him to disappear in any way, shape, or form. It's not like if Matt Walsh had the same kind of scandal happen to him, that might be the end of Matt Walsh.
Hopefully he doesn't, and hopefully he does say what he said there, that he doesn't go out to the cocktail parties or drink or do anything else. But I will say, I mean, we saw, I'm thinking of two different example cases of, influencers or at least online personalities having terrible things happen to them due to their own fault. One would be Nick Rekieta, if somebody knows who that is, the lawyer from Minnesota, who I did used to listen to a lot, and then he just messed his whole life up, and now that angered me even more. The fact that so many people were listening to him and believing it, and then it came out that he was doing the literally complete opposite of what he espoused, and things that he would tell people that they should do. And the other one is Steven Crowder. Now, Nick Rekieta did fully almost...
I like Steven Crowder a lot. And I don't think Steven Crowder's scandal is... I don't think it's a scandal. I'm going to defend him.
I know, but I haven't finished yet.
Okay.
So Nick Rekieta's life imploded, and justifiably, he lost a lot of people that followed him and listened to what he has to say. And he, in my opinion, still looks like he's on crazy town. But with Steven Crowder, when the scandal came out and a lot of allegations came out from his wife and from other people and undercover video, etc., he was able to move past that because eventually it was other things were exposed as well. And I think him continuing and having said, as you say about Elijah, having said so many, explicit things or whatever you want to call it, helped him in a way for people to say, well, I mean, eventually more things came out, and that is kind of uncancelable in a way, although they did try to cancel.
Yeah, Steven Crowder's scandal wasn't a scandal at all. I don't think in any way, shape, or form. They had him on a Ring doorbell camera complaining at his wife to go pick something up. Yeah, yelling at his wife one
Pregnant
time.
wife.
Oh, you're like, come on now.
I mean, that is not the kind of
He
behavior.
didn't cheat on her. He didn't do
that we
any
know
of these things.
That
Yeah.
we know. There were allegations that he had cheated, but
Yeah, that would have came out if that was the case.
There were
Trust me,
there were
they were trying to hit him. Allegations is
what
something
I'm-
different than.
But what I'm saying is, for a Christian man that follows, the wife is the most important thing in the household, etc., to see that, it should be a little scandalous to see the way he treated his wife,
I don't think so.
pregnant wife of 8 months with twins.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, we'll disagree. I like Crowder. I'll defend
No,
him,
who you
and I
marry.
don't. And I think that was a private conversation in his own home, and it wasn't mixed with serious cheating, drugs, and other things like what's happening with Elijah right now.
I know, and I will say it did seem like a
And
vengeance.
what happened with
style thing.
Rakeda was something completely different as
Yes,
well.
that was
Those are
insane.
two different complete scales. I don't even see what Crowder did. I almost see it as you're using.
But I mean, I did stop listening to him after all of that came out,
I
at least for
listened to
a
him
while.
Yeah.
And you did too. I mean, we stopped listening to him for a while, and then, I mean, he kind of came back on and is making a name for himself again and becoming a little bit more serious again. But for a while, he did have to, step back, and I don't know if Elijah will be able to shoulder all of this as much as Crowder was able to get past it.
Yeah, I thought it was less to do with the scandal with his wife because I didn't think that was actually a big thing, and I thought it had a lot more to do with when he went head to head with the Daily Wire. That hurt him
That too.
quite a bit.
Yeah,
So, but that was more
That was
very business oriented,
that was before.
and that hurt the Daily Wire as well. It hurt both sides of that party at that point.
Funnily enough, Candace was fully protecting the Daily Wire back then. She was,
Yeah.
batting for them on Tim Pool and all over the place.
Okay, let's go into the last thing in personality politics, and then we'll take the comments. But this is unrelated, but we talk about Jake Lang kind of a lot.
You like to talk about it.
When he comes up because I don't agree with him, and I say don't go to his protest because he is provoking violence, and violence will be used against the conservative movement when it does happen, just like it's used against the left when it happens.
But yes,
in this
recently.
case, he didn't do violence against anybody. He kicked down an ice sculpture, and I kind of actually, for once, agree with him. I know you don't. He did get
No,
arrested.
I mean, I agree with kicking down the secute because the idiots wrote prosecute.
He did get arrested for this. I still say don't show up at his protest in general because he's going to provoke violence and it's going to be used against the right, just like January 6th kind of was. But in this case, I actually like to see this.
Ryan Offel says, quote, Jake Lang was arrested outside the Minnesota State Capitol because they put in on this ice sculpture. He kicked down a prosecute ICE sign and rearranging the letters to say pro-ICE, which is funny that they decided to write prosecute and not any other word because this couldn't be done.
And it's Minnesota, so this ice sculpture has supposedly been out there for quite a while because it's cold, it's not going to melt, and this shouldn't be on a state capitol.
President Trump, we support you. We support ICE. Our country was made for Americans, not for Somalis.
He almost fell.
Pro-ICE, baby. America first, America only. We'll see you here February 7th.
And that, I mean,
And again, I actually don't mind the fact that he did that, but I would say don't go to his protest. And he's trying to promote one of his protests with that. But
That's why I ended
these things, yes, he does have freedom of speech, but he's literally trying to provoke violence. The last time at the ICE protest, he did manage to provoke that, but usually it's Muslim protests at mosques, and it's not a good situation. They're not peaceful protests. Again, when I point to the proper way to protest, I almost always point to the truckers convoy in Canada, because that was not only a peaceful protest, but well organized. Crime rates went down when they took over the city. They left an emergency lane open so emergency vehicles can make their way through the city, even though they shut down the roads.
And with him being arrested, I will also say, let's all remember what a lot of the left tried to do to statues as well, and how they were trying to bring them down, and they were never, arrested, or most of them weren't, and it was just allowed to happen. Also, I think there's a statute somewhere in Minnesota where you're not supposed to have any sort of specific political messaging on government buildings, but I'm not fully sure on that, so I won't claim that that is true. But if that's true, well, then why was there an ice sculpture right at the front of the state capitol? With a very specific message against one side when it's supposed to be a neutral ground. But now I will read your comments. Sirius says, hello, thank you for being here. And also says, shaking my head, I'm guessing at the whole Elijah Schaffer Sarah Stock thing. Sirius also says, social media is terrible. I listen to my mother's and aunt's rant. It seems as if they all watch, all they watch is a misogynist propaganda. LOL. And yeah, I mean, and we see a lot of women, especially with the protests against ICE and with other protests, all the insane protests, where we've seen women be fully captured by mostly just social media and empathy and their emotions. And when that translates into actual violence on the streets, we can see the actual damage that social media and some influencers, at least, that will say do and does.
Well, the entire thing kind of flipped around. I think the general public is generally against these protests now, especially since Trump has pulled back a lot of the tactics he was using, and he's just going straight to federal jails to kind of grab people that have already been arrested. He doesn't want the same incidents kind of happening that bring bad press, but man, the left is just taking these protests to another level. They're asking for people's papers in the streets, stopping cars when they have no right to do that. They're going into yoga studios, completely taking them over, saying, we're going to cancel all of our memberships. You need to give us answers. I mean, I had a video, I didn't pick it up today, but I was just like, there's just dozens of videos, and it's just turning the general public against these ICE protesters. And but I will say this.
I think he was talking more about Elijah Schaffer.
Oh, okay.
Stuff. Sirius says, these men who are trying to be faithful and smeared on the net is a shame. And again, I really do think it is more of a mask-off moment for those that are criticizing, for example, Sarah Stock's hopefully now ex-husband or soon-to-be ex-husband, than it is to criticize both her and Elijah, because they were the public figures that were also espousing all of these things and telling their followers to do X, Y, and Z while receiving money for saying those things.
Oh God. One thing I definitely hope doesn't happen, because the kid is young and looks like he's been completely mentally broken, and she seems like a snake in the grass. I really hope she doesn't somehow convince him to stay with her, because that would be number one.
Because we shouldn't divorce. That's bad.
Oh
I can see it happening.
God, I can see it happening too. That's the issue. Like, I really hope.
And again, allegedly he's doing really bad, but even if he isn't,
the way to kind of make sure he doesn't do that is don't give him a bunch of flack online. That's not going to be good. But try to give him real advice if you're going to write a comment or something on his social media, I guess.
Or encouragement.
Yeah.
You know.
But yeah, hopefully, because I've known enough guys that have gone back to a woman that's cheated on them multiple times. That's never the right answer. If they cheat on you, you leave.
Yes. Because it'll continue. I mean, they've shown what they're willing to do and what they'll probably, especially I hate both women and men who, get together by cheating on whoever they're with, and then they expect that not to happen to them while they're in that relationship. Because I've seen that happen a lot of times too.
Well, I used to be a bouncer in a bar, and when you're a bouncer in a bar, not a nightclub, but a bar, you see a lot of social dynamics, especially when it's the regulars coming back every day after years and years. I mean, oh God, one time I seen one of the bartenders that I was working with, she was dating a guy, and he was just the nicest guy. He comes in, and then he sits down, and literally 6 of the guys she used to date's all sitting there. He leaves, and then at the end of her shift, she leaves with one of the guys that was sitting there that she used to date. I mean, it's just
yes, not all women are as innocent as they pretend to be.
Well,
either, but
a lot of okay. Well, let's keep going.
Anonymous says a lot of these conservatives are mostly attacking Sarah rather than Elijah. Also, there's a video where Sarah said she had a rash and that Elijah gave her some sort of substance which made her sleepy. Yes, but again, I mean, yes, criticize both of them. Fully in agreement with that.
They're both making excuses. She's saying Elijah gave her NyQuil and that she didn't have control of the situation. Elijah's saying, oh, I was blacked out. So they're both trying to use alcohol as an excuse to kind of forgive the sin.
But again, I mean, it wasn't a one-night thing. They were doing it for months on end until she got engaged, allegedly.
Take responsibility for your actions. I would say that's the best way out here. Don't blame it on the alcohol, and that's what they're both trying to do here.
And with her saying that he tried to give her something, it sounds kind of like the whole Bill Gates thing as well, which we just covered, where he tried to give medicine to his wife because he gave her an STD.
Well, because Elijah says so many radical things, he's going to be able to continue a show probably with a smaller audience.
I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen.
She has a hard right turn she can do. Rather than doing the things she was doing privately, she can just do it publicly on OF. And I would be willing to guess that's the turn she's going to make now. And I'm guess that she would probably be successful at it.
And in my opinion, the sidestep from one thing to the other is very short, as I said before.
Yeah, but it's the two spouses that you got to really feel for in these situations.
Yeah. Sirius says, LOL, the simp bots, yeah. And they do exist. And again, a lot of them are the types that follow the Myron Gaines and Andrew Tates and etc. that then see this online and they fully believe it. And as I always say, both in English and in Spanish, don't fully believe anyone or anything online, even in real life, but always verify, check for yourself, use your critical thinking, use discernment, and also know that people, if especially they're asking for money or doing things online just for the money, understand where their motivations lie as well. Don't be naive about that.
Although there was a good interview the other day on Piers Morgan, and he happened to bring on Andrew Tate, and I was like, I guess I'll watch it. But it was a good conversation because they brought up the Epstein files and the last 5 years of prosecutions they've tried to bring against Andrew Tate, and they've had absolutely nothing. They've had to drop case after case after case. He's not in the Epstein files. If he was, they would have put that on the front page news. Piers Morgan, that was interviewing Andrew Tate, is all over those files. All the politicians that were trying to prosecute Tate, like Keir Starmer, they're all in the files. It's not to say Andrew Tate's excused for anything, but the fact that they've tried so hard to prosecute him for so long, and now these files are out, and it's just implicating all the people that were pointing fingers at him. Maybe they should stop pointing fingers at him at some point.
And Sirius said, no, Anonymous says, saying facts now is being a simp.
Huh?
Well, the ones that pretend that they're saying facts, but and again, I always say, for example, I know less than I know more. Like, I'm saying my opinion and giving my opinion, but there's so many things I don't know, and I might and probably are wrong about. The thing is, the people that pretend like they know everything and try to put off that, and then receive money for it.
Well, the conservative community in general has a big, huge problem with simping, and this is what gives way to feminism within the space. And I think that's people will complain about feminism even within the conservative space now because it's becoming a big issue and it's becoming a bit of a problem, but it's because of simps, and a large portion of the conservative community will try to protect a lot of female influencers that really aren't espousing conservative values, but are espousing this new wave of conservative feminism.
Covert feminism.
Covert feminism, yeah.
But I will also, and again, just the whole media space online, some of it is really good, but some of it is terrible. And I will say, even though a lot of people do like it, you like them, but a lot of the debate space and the whatever podcasts and that kind of trying to be based, but also inviting in the same thing that you're saying that you're trying to fight against, I think that's not any good for actually building and actually creating something that can be emulated, especially by younger people.
Yeah, but overall, I really do like Andrew Wilson, and I think he has good first principles, and I do think he is a good role model in general. That being said, you also have to realize he kind of came out of nowhere, and yeah, he went on the whatever podcast that really hyped up his profile and made him very widely known. Now he's on Piers Morgan. Now he was on Tim Pool. Recently, he was on, he was on something really, really big. Anyway, what I was going to say is, yeah, he said pretty outlandish things, but he backed up everything he said. Now he's kind of mainstreaming himself. And I noticed Nick Fuentes is kind of doing the same thing. So they realized they got pretty much as high profile as they're going to get by saying outlandish things, and now they're really trying to mainstream themselves, and they're doing it successfully.
But does that actually help the discourse? Does that actually help move forward and teach others what
you don't listen to Andrew Wilson like I do? Yeah, I think he's very good. I think he's very good in the space, and he gives tough love to a lot of these people.
But I'm saying doing the whole saying outlandish things and then walking it back, does that actually move the conversation
he doesn't walk
forward?
It back. He'll say,
well, you said he's mainstreaming himself a bit more. So
he's
diluting himself from what he usually does say.
Well, yeah, and he's also not putting himself in those same interactions anymore, so he will say those crazy things, right?
But he already did.
And then Nick Fuentes is kind of going soft against certain countries, so he can mainstream himself, because that was the one big dig that was kind of pushing him out to the fringes.
And Sirius says, and I fully agree, it's all a cash grab. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's, the conservative space has really become that. But I've seen, because the amount of political influencers I followed over the years, as we were trying to flee Canada and save the money, it was about 4 years. I had jobs where I'd constantly be listening to things in my ears. So all these influencers that are big now, I was watching one of them when they were very, very small channels, but there's been multiple crops that have kind of come through now. The crop that we're seeing now was really the first crop, and they've become extremely successful. But I think it's time for a new generation to kind of come in there. Yeah.
And to also shift the way conversations are had and the whole dialogue that's going on to make it maybe elevate it a bit more. It started very elevated, I would say, and some of you will not agree, and that's fine, but with the debates in colleges and with Charlie Kirk and with I know everybody hates him, but Ben Shapiro, and with people that were, everybody else that got famous first, Joe Rogan, that were trying to look at things from a more nuanced sort of view, but also with some of the knowledge that they could bring. And I think it devolved into just repeating the same things over and over again and sounding based, and then that would get you followers.
No, I don't think so. I think you have to remember where the space was at that time. And if you look over in the EU and Canada right now, the space has continued to go in that leftward direction. There was a time there was mass censorship on YouTube. That's why we have our secondary channel on RUMBLE, just in case something like that happens again. In 2028, if a Newsom wins, it's very likely censorship is going to make up for lost time in the United States and in social media. People like Nick Fuentes kicked down a lot of the doors of what's socially acceptable to say. Even people like Elijah Schaffer, people like Tim Pool were really touching subjects that were off bounds for a long, long time. And that's why we have so much leeway to talk about so many things today. But now that we have that leeway, I think the next generation is going to be a little bit different.
But what I'm saying is that is what has been lost. The whole being able to, talk about those subjects, but do it in a way where it is nuanced, intelligent, where discernment happens, where disagreement happens. And now we're seeing, especially I would say more on TikTok and Instagram, and the ones that do the shorter videos and the ones that go on things like the whatever podcast or on those debate shows on Jubilee, all of those influencers that have cropped up and that just say inflammatory things or base things that many people will give you likes for just saying what they want to hear, then the audience capture that has been happening as well. I hope that we move past from that and go back to a more actual debate conversation, actual nuance and debating actual points, not just saying, oh yeah,
you don't
X, Y, Z.
You see, and some artists, I keep using Andrew Wilson as the example, but you see him through his clips because all they do is clip him. But I watch his long format stuff, and he really.
I'm not talking about Andrew Wilson. I'm talking about, for example, there's a new TV show coming up about all of these influencers, including Destiny and Xavier Durousseau. He's producing it. I'm talking about them, that kind of influencer that mostly work. No, they're all on the base right. Some of them work for PragerU or have worked for PragerU. Other people have become independent. But Destiny is a thing on its own. And what I'm saying is, I hope we move past that crop of influencers that are just saying things that their audience want to hear and actually give their opinions and be more truthful online.
We can disagree. I think there's...
you want that to continue?
No, I think there's enough space for kind of everybody. And that you're trying to say we need to move past like that.
Well, I'm saying that it's not helping.
Well, that you're trying to act like those are the only people in the space. There's plenty of intellectuals in the space.
Yes.
And they have a lot of viewers as well. So I don't want to see us kind of move past that. I think there's a space over here for those influencers, and they can maintain that. I just don't want to see them have the dominance they've had over the last few years, maybe.
Because I would also say, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, they were the ones that kind of, and I'm including Candace in this, and what's that guy she always brings on that's crazy with the weird eyes? The conspiracy theory guy.
I don't know.
Yeah, she had him on. She had him host her show for like a week.
Oh, Ian Carroll.
That one. So all of those people kind of came up and tried to do a power grab of the space. And I think right now we're seeing that still with the conservative civil war that's going on, with the actual important points of who's going to take power after Trump leaves. But then them cropping in and coming in and trying to take over the space was not productive for anybody. Yeah, especially now with the midterms coming.
I also think we have just a general disagreement there because I could say the same thing about like a Tim Pool. And you really like Tim Pool, but if I just watch his clips and I said, oh, he just says outrageous things, but he doesn't 90% of the time.
I'm not talking about Andrew Wilson. You're trying to defend Andrew Wilson.
I didn't say Andrew Wilson, I said Tim Pool.
I know, but I'm talking about the Xavier Durousseau's, and I can't think of Brad Colombo. I can't think of all the other names right now.
But I'll even say
all this crop that came up
Yeah, but you're giving examples, and I'm countering those examples by saying even Ian Carroll did good work. Even Candace Owens did some good work. Now, she may have gone off the hinges at one point, but
before the whole just being as inflammatory as you can, and the clips came up, and the people that mostly came up on Instagram and TikTok started to gain dominance over the voices that were trying to be more, debate, nuanced, etc.
Okay, we've made the points. Why don't we go back to the comments?
Sirius says, I'm all for it, LOL. I don't know which part, but okay. Sirius also says, Crowder deserved it, although his wife was more wrong for not being more tactical to leave him. She made them both look silly. And again, I will agree that she could have, hopefully she could have left a long time ago. And that a lot of was used in a type of, it seemed like vengeance by one side as well.
Also, I'm conflicted. I really do like Crowder on that, and I think that was a private video. And I think if she would have tried to handle it kind of more out of court, he's the kind of guy that would have went tit for tat and really tried to do her in with high priced lawyers. So I understand her strategy in that divorce by releasing that video and having other things maybe she could have released. She wanted to kind of set herself up for the future, I guess. That being said, I didn't like the way the video was released at all. And I do typically take Crowder on that. Take Crowder's side on that incident.
Anonymous says, all protest is gesture.
No, I don't think all protest is gesture, not at all. But there's definitely there's definitely the new social media space where you need to dominate the social media space with your protests. So, yeah.
I think that was Jake Lang or whatever.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of bringing up. I was kind of bringing it back to Jake Lang there.
Oh, that would be another example of that kind of crop of just saying things to be.
Well, he thinks of something he can do, that he'll plan a protest and then he's like, I got to get people to come out to this protest. So I got to do something absolutely outrageous. Have some kind of violent confrontation with Muslims, or at the ICE protest when he got dragged into the crowd to get eyes on him. And I don't necessarily think that that's the most productive way to do it. Mm-hmm. I think violence works in the short term, but it turns against the movement in the long term. January 6th was turned against the conservative movement because it went a little bit violent.
Sirius says, Nat, you don't have to read all my comments, but that's what we do. So thank you for leaving them. And it actually helps kind of keep the show lighter, and so we can talk to you as well. Trent Briggs says, I saw the Melania movie, was interesting, but not in depth. We haven't been able to because they took it out of theaters here, and now we have to wait for it on stream. Yeah, I'd love to do a review, but I can't.
They played it in one theater for one showing on a Sunday at 3 p.m, which we couldn't go to. And then all the newspapers here in Mexico wrote articles of Melania's flopping, nobody's going to see the movie. Yeah, they only played it in very select theaters for one showing on one day, specifically probably so they could write articles like that. Mm-hmm. We wanted to see it. We're going to have to wait for streaming now. I'm kind of disappointed to hear that it didn't go in depth because I kind of wanted to see maybe some of her political views and behind the scenes of the Trump administration.
But I think it would be interesting at least to see kind of the preparations for it. But I do think it might be a bit more women coded or female coded than if they were following Trump, for example.
Well, and I've said it before, I think Melania is an extremely important figure in the political movement because I don't think she thought she would be in the position she is as husband or wife to Trump as he became president, and all the backstabbing and knives that came out for him from all sides. So she really has a good inside knowledge of kind of how things worked. And I'm sure he talks to her in ways he talks to nobody else. And Barron Trump, I believe, will be president one day. She's going to bring that kind of knowledge to Barron Trump and kind of keep a lot of people maybe away from him that shouldn't be around him.
That would be useful. Sirius, because I am going to read all your comments, says they're like unsupervised kids. If you mean the ridiculous influencers that call themselves conservative, then I would agree. And Sirius also says, I can't stand the Tate crowd. Same. And I think, and we've talked about him, clavicular is one of the endpoints. What comes after Andrew Tate is clavicular. It's that mentality that brought him there.
Yeah, as much as people don't like Andrew Tate, and I like some of the things he espouses, I think it's good. Just like some of the things the red pill community espouses is good. There's a lot of things that aren't good, but there's a type of influencer that comes after Andrew Tate that really modeled themselves on Andrew Tate and then got 1,000 times worse, which is clavicular. I mean, I was watching a video of him. I should have grabbed it. He was putting socks in his shoes. We've shown that one so he can be taller, and he's already over 6 foot, but he's putting like these silicone shoulder pads on his shoulders so he can look like he's bigger than he is rather than actually work out.
In my opinion, that is what the mindset of Andrew Tate hath wrought upon
Andrew
the
Tate
earth.
actually worked out though, and actually had real results.
But
when it
if
came to
you're
it.
going to find a shortcut to it, as a lot of the women do, well, then you're going to end up with that.
Okay.
Should we move on to, wait, what are we moving?
Yeah, we're going to go into health, MAHA, and education. And again, one of the stories is education, and we usually put those in these sections.
But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
So yes, changing hopefully the topics completely now. Let's go into, I think you put the full one here, but Ryan Gertison says, quote, if you haven't watched Climate the movie, do it. It's excellent. It will open your eyes to this grift, which the leader of our country is very much a part of. Ryan Gertison is in Canada.
And again, we're actually the first 2 minutes of this movie, it works as a trailer and gets a good understanding of what it is. But you can look at the X I grabbed here. It's the full movie. So you can watch it. It looks absolutely fantastic. I haven't had a chance to watch the whole thing yet, but I did watch a large portion this morning as I started trying to figure out where I wanted to clip. But the first 2 minutes was the best 2 minutes.
People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Not even crying.
This is the story of how an eccentric environmental scare grew into a powerful global industry.
It's a wonderful business opportunity, okay? You want climate, we'll give you climate.
There's a huge amount of money involved, and this is a huge, big money scam.
There are not just now billions, but there are trillions of dollars at stake.
It's a story of self-interest and big government funding.
People like me, our careers depend on funding of climate research. This is what I've been doing just about my whole career. This is what the other climate researchers are doing with their whole career. They don't want this to end.
If CO2 isn't having the huge negative impacts that we claimed it was having originally, how are we going to stay in business?
A lot of people's livelihoods depend on it. They're not going to give that up.
This is a story of the corruption of science.
There's no such thing as a climate emergency happening on this planet now. There's no evidence of one.
The climate alarm is nonsense. You know, it's a hoax. I've never liked hoax. I think scam is a better word, but I'm willing to live with hoax.
It's a story about the bullying and intimidation of anyone who dares to challenge the climate alarm.
Okay, you can leave it there. I want you to show the beginning and show the fact that this is mainly climate insiders, climate scientists that are kind of exposing what this hoax was that people just still to this day don't want to believe. They're starting to realize it because the emergence of AI, they're completely abandoning this idea of we need to tear down good sources of energy like nuclear power plants and go towards green energy, which is very sporadic and doesn't really give off enough energy.
And I do think it's, and we watched another one a long time ago, and I even showed it to some lefty friends, and they were outraged that these things were being said. But when they looked into who the people talking were, they realized that they had been, and they were some of the most prominent names in the whole climate science, environmental sciences, and they had been pushed out by academia and by the powers that be that benefit so much more from continuing with this insanity.
And a lot of these people, you could see they're a lot older. They're coming to the end of their career. They've already made their money. They've already had their fame. And now they're going to kind of expose what's behind the curtain. So good on those people for blowing the whistle and actually coming out.
And I do agree. I mean, we are seeing, and we saw it at Davos, a shift towards both health and AI in health. And that's becoming the new thing because the whole climate stuff isn't as profitable as it once was, but it was very profitable for a long time. And with a lot of these alarmist things or activism things that become these huge money-making machines. We also saw it with the human rights campaign and the LGBTQ whole agenda thing that they had going on. I mean, they got to the train got to the station, and they would be able to kind of stop it there. But they had built these gigantic institutions and these NGOs and things that just receive money but also give money out, that you cannot tear it down as easily. So you try to find the next big thing, which for the LGBTQ community was the trans thing. And then that became, I mean, we had 15 years of that insanity.
Yeah,
as well?
I think data gathering and AI are going to be the new scam. I think these kind of things kind of came out of nowhere, and they're trying to figure out how they can grift and monetize these things. So there'll be a natural big investment, but you're going to see 2 or 3 times the investment actually needed so the right people can line their pockets and turn this into a corrupt industry, just like they did with the climate hoax. And good on these people for making this movie and not really trying to monetize it. The entire thing is out there on X. It's on YouTube, so you can watch it literally today.
And that
I think it was
that shows intent, and I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
But speaking of grifting, now moving on to health, Valerie-Ann Smith says, quote, and if you didn't know, orthopedics is the most corrupt medical specialty. Oncology ranks a close second, according to investigative journalist Gardner Harris.
Okay, and we were talking about on the last episode, we showed a similar clip within the dental industry and how, but let's play this clip and we'll continue to expose things like this as they come up.
Orthopedics is by far the most corrupt form of medicine. Oncology is next. Orthopedics are routinely consultants for device companies. And so the choice of the device that is in your body is often determined by the amount of money that one company will pay them in order to choose that device. You should know the manufacturer of the device inside of you because there are recalls. Many people never heard that their hip needed to get pulled out of them because their doctor just simply didn't tell them. You need to know this stuff. If you have a loved one who goes to the hospital.
Yeah, and I know a lot of, it was still going, sorry.
Need a Cerebus at the gate. You have to have someone with you all the time asking questions. One of my favorite studies in medicine was surveying doctors about their patients, about who they liked and who they didn't like. And the patients that were disliked the most by doctors and nurses had the highest survival numbers. So when you go to the hospital, don't try to be friends with everybody. This is your health. You need to fight for it, and you need someone there fighting for you.
Yeah, and I would say that's especially true. We came from Canada. We now live in Mexico, but I also lived in the United States. So I got to see all 3 medical kind of systems. The Canadian socialized system is just, there's so much corruption on every single level. But in the American system, you want people that are going to be asking questions.
And also with, for example, implants. I mean, so many scandals have come out that a lot of people don't know about, from leaching materials into people's bloodstreams and giving them horrible other diseases that they wouldn't have had to deal with, to actual whole surgeries and whole procedures that could have been avoided if the patient had advocated or gone to ask for a second opinion. But in the US and in Canada as well, it is very difficult to get that second opinion.
Well, especially once you get approved through your insurance, you kind of get streamlined and then just push through the system, doctor to surgery, and then you're done. Here in Mexico, it's very easy to get second opinions and things like that. They're fairly cheap to get. The more expensive thing is going to be the X-ray or the MRI, but even those are a lot cheaper than in the United States. That being said, they used the example of hip surgery there, and I personally know at least 4 people that were completely screwed over by them recommending the wrong thing and stuff leaching into their bodies, and then the hip just not working after 5 years.
Same as back surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them unfortunately don't go as well, and a lot of people are kind of pressured into it when alternatives are not even allowed to be discussed. That is the thing, because there's so much of a profit motive behind medicine, which shouldn't be there, but it's important.
The big example of that was the jibby jab era, especially in Canada. It was so profit motivated. I don't think they had the citizens' best interest at heart there.
Going on to education, or at least a student, because this came out recently about Don Lemon.
Yeah, this was just related tangentially through education, so I thought it would I would put it here. But you're seeing so many students go into these protests, and
being taken to these protests, which is even worse. I mean, both are bad.
They're putting down this ideological path and then funneled into these unwitting participants in these protests.
Marinalfo says, quote, a student admitted that he helped Don Lemon plan logistics before the church protest, blowing a hole in Lemon's claim that he was just there to film. Seems like he wasn't just holding the camera after all.
Also developing this morning, a new federal arrest is drawing attention to what prosecutors say was Don Lemon's role in planning and recording the disturbing protest of demonstrators storming that Minnesota church service. A Temple University student has now surrendered on federal charges, admitting he helped Don Lemon with logistics and local contacts ahead of that anti-ICE protest. Jerome Richardson, a political science senior, turned himself in and is accused of conspiring to interfere with religious worship. Court records and social media posts show Richardson describing himself as assisting Don Lemon in the days leading up to the protest. Lemon, who claims he was just reporting, was arrested last week and released, but prosecutors say this new arrest undercuts that defense, suggesting planning and not just passive coverage. Also developing this morning.
Yeah, and this is the thing we need is when you're going after these protesters, you need whistleblowers that will testify against other people. So you need the ability to hand out harsh sentences so you can flip people. I think the same tactic needs to be used with the Epstein files. These Epstein files haven't shown a lot, but if you can get 1 or 2 high profile people that you can prosecute for a large amount of time, you can get them to flip on other people. And then soon enough, you have a whole network and a whole web of high profile individuals that really weren't implicated in the files necessarily, but you were able to get them off of just one prosecution from the files.
But we have seen quite a few clips, and we've played some of them at least, of students being taken, like young students, elementary age kids being taken or even being taken out to their schoolyard, but with signs saying no ICE, etc. And then older students going to Targets or getting the day off to just go protest. And it just shows, I mean, it's the full face mask off moment for a lot of the left that has infiltrated and that mainly just dominates the education system now, not just in the States, but in a lot of countries.
Yeah, there was quite a few clips actually, because it's becoming so well known that these teachers are bringing out these elementary school kids to these protests and high school kids as well. The one clip we saw, it was 5 and 6 years old students. They were having make signs in the class and then bringing them out to the schoolyard to protest. But a lot of these campuses are actually bringing them to off-campus protests in dangerous areas. One father, I had a clip of, I should have grabbed it, found out they had brought his kid to a protest. He tried to rush down there to videotape the whole thing and take his kid back. They had already gotten back to the school by then.
And then now the kid is no longer going to the school.
Yeah, and that's not the only clip like that. There's 4 major incidents now where parents are starting to pull their kids out of school because their teachers were bringing them to unsafe protests.
But also we saw that, I mean, this already happened during the whole BLM Summer of Love, where teachers were also taking students and making them make signs and follow along with the chants, or for pride parades as well. Why haven't parents, woken up and done actually something about it? Because it is impossible with the school unions and how captured they have all become. But I will say, if you have the ability to do something now, and or homeschool your kid if you're able to.
Yeah, it's one thing if these are college age students and they're making the decisions for themselves. It's another thing when a teacher takes them out of the school or makes it mandatory to go or shames them if they don't go. Because if they don't go and every other student's going to go, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to just go along with the crowd there.
And this is why I say probably Gen Alpha and some younger Gen Z, because they've been propagandized this much, their rebellion will be turning towards religion and conservatism. So in a way, hopefully we'll see that starting to happen soon. Now that Gen Alpha is talking a bit more. But let's read some comments and then we'll move on to religion.
Okay.
Trembriggs says, I don't think we have anything about this, but we can talk about it. Trembriggs says, Trump's in a lot of trouble right now for the Obama meme. That misunderstanding, I would say.
It wasn't what it looked like, and the information is kind of out now. They edited the video. They needed to put it out there, and at the end of the video, it automatically switched to the next video, which was the Obama video on, it looks like it was from X.
Which is a meme video.
This typically happens to creators a lot. That's why you see the TikTok logo come in at the end, or you see the next video automatically play. We don't use TikTok as much.
When they screen grab stuff. But again, will the left ever listen? Is this great for them and for their whole propaganda machine and they're going against Trump and TDS syndrome? Of course it is. So they won't ever, some will see tiny corrections somewhere in the articles that were written, but they will continue to use this for about the next week, as they did with Alex Preddy or Renee Good, and then they'll move on to the next thing. But
Yeah, but
now that the truth is out, at least you can tell people that still believe it, that it was actually a meme video, had nothing to do with it, and it auto-played.
I'm also interested to see what happens after weeks, because a lot of these stories pop up right away and it's racist because the video was in there for 2 seconds at the end of the actual video, but it was like a 1 or 2 minute video. It was actually very well done. It was about voter fraud. So the fact that it has all this attention because of what happened at the end with the 2 seconds might bring more attention to the video, and it could actually backfire because it's something that needs to be done. They need to get a voter ID. They need to clean up elections in general for both the left and the right.
Mm-hmm. Especially now that we're seeing what's happening with redistricting on both sides,
Yeah.
which is insane.
The redistricting is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the Democrats are doing it en masse, but the Republicans have been doing it for years as well. It needs to stop. There needs to be some kind of federal legislation against it.
Trent Briggs says, be your own advocate in healthcare. And exactly, that's what I always say. And also don't feel embarrassed to ask questions or further dive deeper into, because there's all the examples in the world as to how doctors sometimes maybe don't know or hide things specifically, or are just recommending things because of the kickbacks that they get.
Well, and I would also say do your own research, because if you do your own research, there are a ton of Canadians and Americans that just don't have certain procedures available to them in their country because Big Pharma doesn't want those kind of procedures available to them. Stem cells, whether it be stem cells or any number of other things. A lot of Americans and Canadians come down to Mexico for state-of-the-art treatment. Mm-hmm. And you would only know about these state-of-the-art treatments if you do your own research, because doctors aren't even allowed to talk about these treatments in Canada or the United States.
Some of them are super, super safe, but in the majority of cases, it is because it's not convenient.
Sometimes there's no option. So even if they're not safe and that's your only option, maybe you're going to want to try it if you only got a few months left to live.
And same as with education, the capture of medicine by the left and certain ideals and ideologies has also been insane. And we were just seeing now, for example, we reported the other day on the whole trans thing. Finally, the first Association of Medical Professionals came out to say, and this was plastic surgeons, came out to say, yeah, maybe operating on, underage kids to mutilate them isn't the best idea that we've ever had.
Well, I think they were actually trying to protect their own back because they're the ones doing those surgeries. Eventually, we're starting to see lawsuits now emerge against doctors. So they know they're going to be on the chopping block there. So. Mm-hmm.
And Sirius says, can there be an alternative to voter ID? Hope it's not digital. I mean, here in Mexico, we have our own little voting card. And yes, now they want to digitalize everything, and that's terrible. But again, it could just be your license, or it could be a card that you already have, some sort of ID you already have. But I do fear that they will try to make it into digital ID. And I hope it's not the Trump administration.
Digital ID, digital currency were the main two topics we talked about every day for a long time on this channel. And I constantly warned in order to clean up elections and get rid of illegal immigrants, you don't need a digital ID. Those are the excuses they're going to use to push that in. So figure out a way to do it without a digital ID. I just don't like the idea of digital ID and digital currency in general. And even if you are going to have a digital currency, there needs to be a hard monetary currency there and available.
And again, it could just be a voting card or your license or your passport or your, I don't know.
You don't need to clean it up. You don't need to clean it up 100%. And that's we need to clean it up 100%. We need to track it 100%. So we need a digital ID. No, you don't. Right now, it's so corrupt. I'd be happy with 90% of the corruption kind of rooted out. And you can do that with regular IDs.
Mm-hmm. But it could be Patriot Act 2.0 and the power grab that comes with it.
Well, I would also say just a regular ID and then having a scanner at the facility. So when you want to vote, you have to scan the ID. So then there's some kind of record. Was this a legitimate ID? Was this not a legitimate ID?
Yeah. Let's move on to religion. It just has one thing, and then we'll move on to the U.S.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
And religion, another institution that has been captured, unfortunately, at least in some sectors. From Defiant L's Presbyterian minister, woman, says if Jesus was here today, he might have said, blessed are those who will end their pregnancies, which is insane because...
Yeah, and this is the infiltration of the left into the churches, and this is what we're seeing now. There's also a Democratic, I believe he's running for senator in in Texas trying to espouse Christian values are abortion is a Christian value, he's saying. Not against abortion, but pro-abortion. Also, he's espousing LGBTQ values in the disguise of the church.
And I think we notice it a lot because in Vancouver and in Canada, this is essentially religion is just basically this, unfortunately, at least in the bigger cities.
If Jesus were here today, he would be a clinic escort, distracting women from the hatred of the protesters, or an abortion doula, holding women's hands and offering support and love as they end their pregnancies. And I expect he would have a stern word for self-righteous legislators who use abortion as a political issue rather than showing compassion for the people seeking abortions. Today, on this Rose Sunday, I wanted to share some of the stories we have collected because these are the sacred stories of women's lives. If Jesus were giving his sermon today, he might also have said, "Blessed are those who end pregnancies, for they will be known for their loving kindness." I have been pregnant 4 times. I have had 2 abortions, and I have 2 amazing children. Each of my reproductive decisions to have children and not to have children were sacred decisions because they reflect the moral responsibility of reproductive power that is part of our inheritance as human creatures. Each of you has a reproductive.
And she's using the pulpit as a political forum. Number one, she shouldn't even be there. Number two, but this is not just her. This is not just one clip. We've shown this over and over. We've experienced it in the downtown cores of almost all of Canada. But that being said, it's making its way into politics now. The left, they're really imploding in on themselves because they've never had a non-moving moral foundation. People are realizing that their morals are given from the top down and they're constantly shifting based upon what they want the population to do. So they're going to need to put the cloak of religion on and say, we have non-moving moral foundations, and those are, and then they're going to try to espouse what their non-moving moral foundations are. Mm-hmm. But they're just going to really make them up, and they're really infiltrating a lot of these churches.
And initially, it became that it was that communism, Marxism, which eventually turned into wokeism and borrowed all of that, would become people's religions and would essentially be religions without the name, but handing down morals and values that were shifting with no actual foundation. And now, because they have created this way of organizing themselves almost as a religion, they are able to cloak themselves and go into actual religions and use that to continue with their messaging. And it is insane that she said, I mean, the sanctity of life is basically number one in at least Christian faith. And the fact that she is saying that murdering your own child is now sacred is insane. And I can't believe she wasn't called out for it while she was there.
Well, a lot of people would say, oh, well, nobody would believe this. But when it's backed by government propaganda on top of it, it's really appealing to a lot of women. Women are going to these churches en masse. And where the women are, sometimes the simps will follow. And that's how you're filling up these pulpits.
And you do have to be really careful, especially for all the younger people that are finding religion or starting to go to church, what you're actually getting into and what the actual moral foundations are of that specific church, because it's getting murkier and murkier, and more dominated by women too.
The government in Canada has official churches that get nonprofit status, and they're taking out independent churches that don't espouse values the government likes. Mm-hmm. So if you're not pro-abortion, you don't get government funding, which makes it very, very hard for independent churches and truly religious churches to survive, or Orthodox style churches as well. Okay, let's go into remigration if we can.
Sirius says, fluid preacher, how disturbing. Incredibly disturbing. And again, saying that murdering your child is something sacred is insane and scary.
And a lot of women want to hear that because they've made the mistake in the past. So they want to hear it's okay rather than I should maybe repent for my sins. And that was an actual human life.
Mm-hmm. But let's move on to remigration now.
The immigration policies in Europe are a disaster. You're destroying Europe. You're destroying the culture of Europe.
Which specifically in Europe and a lot of European countries, it's getting insane. A lot of the policies that they're trying to pass, almost as if they're trying to go and show that they're completely different than the United States. And it's like they're putting pedal to the metal to actually do stupider and stupider things, and more concerning things.
No, it's becoming very obvious what this was the entire time. They wanted to do two things with migration, and now they're just having to take the mask off and tell the people, we're going to legalize all these illegal migrants. We want illegal migrants and they can vote. There's multiple stories today. One we have coming out of France where they're just going to let non-citizens vote in their election. Spain just allowed 500,000 migrants to vote in their election, or they legalized it so they can vote.
Regulate themselves.
So it's obvious now that natural citizens of these countries will not vote left because of their policies. So they want migrants who, that's a new voting bloc for them and will allow the left to stay in power. That's why we see the rise of the right in the EU. But number two is they want to float their GDP or their economy off the back of migrants. As they repress wages and the standard of living goes down in the country, the GDP in the country will go up as long as they flood it with migrants.
Mm-hmm. And let's start here from Basil the Great. Quote, UK government announces scheme for local authorities to build homes just for illegal migrants. 200 local authorities have agreed to take part. And yes, these people are insane.
Now, here's something you just won't believe. The government has announced a scheme which 200 local authorities have expressed an interest in, which is to build council houses just for illegal migrants. That is not something that people want. Forget council houses, forget hotels. Illegal migrants should be detained and they should. Now, here's something you...
Be deported. I will finish it up. Yeah. And in the UK, he's saying local councils. And what have we seen starting to happen and happening for a while now in the UK is that a lot of these migrants who eventually become actual citizens of the country go into government and start, enforcing different laws and trying to change the laws to benefit them and their own, while not benefiting the people and the locals.
You don't even have to be a citizen to run for politics in a lot of these countries, which is absolutely insane. Whose interest do you have at heart here? Why aren't you building free housing for all your citizens rather than these illegal migrants or migrants that are in the country? Put your citizens first. Build housing for them if you want to build housing.
Well, yeah, they say they like equality, but then when it comes down to it, no, they don't. From based Hungary, U.S. media now openly state what Ursula von der Leyen's EU tries to hide. 50 million Muslims now live in Europe. And at the turn of the century, that was 500,000.
50 million Muslims now live in Europe. At the turn of the century, that number was less than 500,000, and more are arriving every day. As the people who lead these countries try to do what Joe Biden tried to do here, and that is fundamentally change the racial and ethnic makeup of a nation and make white Christians a minority in their own country. In England alone, right now, 10 major cities, including London, now have Muslim mayors in a nation that was built around the Church of England. Muslims are now running major cities across the country for the first time in history, and the English want us to believe that this is all normal.
The Muslim will come out and he will stand for truth and he will stand for justice. May Allah give us the ability to stand for the haqq.
So this is not the Middle East. It's not East Minneapolis even. That is England. And when you see images like that, you can't help but ask why anyone, a prime minister or a president or a king, would deliberately try to destroy their own country. Why would you do that? Why is this being done? And because European leaders still celebrate our failed experiment in open borders, it failed here in the United States, and because they've chosen to stand with radical Muslims over their own people, it's because of all of these reasons these countries are falling apart and failing as the attack on Western civilization continues.
Yeah, and they've legalized and normalized the invasion of their own country. And then they tell you you're a racist for pointing it out. And then they arrest you for it under hate speech laws.
And again, also in the UK and England, how long did they cover up the crimes of these same migrants that came in and they allowed into the country that were literally going after their women and girls for 20 plus years, and that being covered by the authorities themselves? Once you look at it in that way, and then once you see the numbers, and once you see that, I think it was Mohammed is the #1 baby boy name in the UK and has been for years, you can start to realize, even without people having to say it outright, what's going on and what the plan has been. and
Yeah,
is.
it's so fundamentally rooted within the UK and the EU now because they're taking positions of power and these communities are voting as blocks. It's going to be almost impossible to root it out. The United States is in a good position, especially when you compare them to Canada or the EU. They woke up at a certain point, and I think Trump gave them just enough breathing room to actually notice what was going on before the propaganda was firmly implanted in their minds.
But let's go back to Minnesota, and I guess good news from Nick Sortor, quote, and we've shown him before, Antifa Kyle has been hit with a laundry list of federal charges in Minnesota, impeding, retaliating against a federal officer, threatening injury to family, conspiracy to impede or injure an officer because he was saying that on his Instagram, that he wanted to go do that, solicitation to commit a crime of violence, interstate domestic violence, interstate communications. And apparently even the building that he was staying at when the officers went in to go get him with an arrest warrant didn't want to open the doors for them. So they still wanted to continue to protect him even after everything he said.
This shirt that he's wearing, this is something that he made and that he's selling. And if he would have been of the right skin color and he wasn't a cross-dressing lunatic and these protests haven't gone the wrong way, which they have now in the last probably week and a half, I think this hoodie would have kind of been the merchandise that would have sold and kind of would have went viral for the left. But just a series of things have gone wrong. And I think anybody seen wearing this, it's not going to have the same effect as it normally would.
And they also could have made this moment and him into a martyr, except everything kind of broke down before that.
Yeah, there was just a series of bad things, all the cross-dressing pictures of him coming out, the amount of violence, the way these protests have turned in a super negative direction and not the way they necessarily wanted it to be.
And how now even local officers are the ones that are trying to, you know, get the protesters out. No, sorry. Should have worn those whistles.
Okay, and you can leave it here. Yeah, and this is one
Sorry
of the,
about the language. That's the only way they know how to talk.
this is one of the few times ICE is actually going out and making arrests. It's mainly all local cops doing the enforcement now. It's been a complete strategy change. It was the strategy change I was kind of calling for, and I think it's working now.
Yeah, now that Tom Homan has come in and has changed the strategy, we are seeing local law enforcement actually doing something, and Tim Walz and Jacob Frey not being so able to impede all of that, because I do think, I mean, local law enforcement did want to try to at least do something, but they were being impeded by the Tim Walz and the powers that be. But Amuse says, quote, Minneapolis police just remembered the city has noise ordinances. Insurrectionists can blow their infuriating whistles all night long, which they have been doing in people's neighborhoods for weeks on end now.
Well, I grabbed this clip to show the tactic change Trump has used. He's now taken most of ICE, not out of the state, but they're implementing them mainly in jails and in safer situations. So they don't have the kind of media propaganda that they had the last two times, especially the last time it did not come off good in the mainstream media. But these are all local police now. These are controlled by the governors and the mayors of these cities. So it doesn't, the blowback doesn't go on Trump if something goes wrong. Yeah, and that's why their uniforms say police now instead of ICE. ICE is primarily protecting federal buildings and very strategic when they do go out.
But I mean, we've also seen the left going against police themselves too. That was all the Summer of Love BLM thing that happened.
Yeah.
But I think now that we've seen this encouraging step towards cooperation between ICE and local law enforcement, and them being able to go into jails and kind of not being so much a sanctuary state, now it's like saying, oh, well, the ones that were before helping us are now against us.
Yeah, and I watch a lot of ICE protests because I got to gather footage for these things. And I will say, all the protests that are happening now are extremely like ideological. They're extremely far left. The people that are on the ground are just loons and crazies, except for one. One I watched in Austin, Texas, and it was on P.F. Jung's channel. P.F. Jung is kind of, he does philosophy and debate, but he went out there on the ground and was asking questions, and it was American flags, and it was actually very normal people, and then he questioned them, and they had very normal answers. They just generally supported the immigrant community, and I could actually respect that protest. Even though I have a different view, they were respectful of the country. They viewed patriotism in a different way than I did, but they had normal answers. These were normal families on the ground. It wasn't these ideological protests that have literally just gone across the country. So there is maybe hope that even if we disagree, you can protest. There is a proper way, I think.
And that is the whole point. Like under the First Amendment, yes, you have freedom of speech and you can go say and stand in a corner and be angry at the government, and that's what that's for. But it is the moment when they start doing the blockades, for example, in just regular neighborhoods and checking everybody's license plates and going after them, chasing the ICE agents. That is, I think, the line of division that should have been taken into account
and then
a long time ago.
Just trying to impede ICE, and now I understand they don't have to impede ICE anymore because ICE isn't doing what they were doing. That being said, they were just trying to antagonize, much like Jake Lang when he goes to a protest, he tries to antagonize. It's the same kind of tactics. I don't necessarily agree with those tactics. And that's why when I do see a protest like what happened in Austin, Texas, where it was actually respectful leftists that were normal, I'll point it out and say, yeah, good on them for doing that. They have the right to protest and have different beliefs, and I like to see it when they do it in a constructive kind of way.
And we had this discussion with Non on the last stream where we said, yeah, the normal left that keeps complaining, oh, don't compare us with the insane ones. Well, it is up to them to police, the left, their community, and to go out there and give the face of the normal common sense left that should be allowed a space and discourse and to debate with the common sense right.
Well, and the big difference was, again, his channel's called P.F. Jung. I've never seen him go on the ground. It's just a talking head and he does debates, but this time he did. And the difference was when he was talking to these families and these people that were on the ground, they actually wanted to interview, and there was a little back and forth. He wasn't trying to have got you questions. He was just asking simple questions like, oh, what do you think about people that actually want immigrants gone, but just don't agree with how far it went with the couple incidents? And the people were willing to answer the questions. And they could have a back and forth. At a lot of these ideological protests, they won't even entertain a question. They'll just yell in your face and blow a whistle.
Yes.
So how are you going to get your messaging out there when you're not even willing to have a back and forth?
Marxist communist tactics, and that's why shouting and saying chants over and over again has, according to them, worked so well, because it allows people to not think critically and also not be questioned. The narrative cannot be questioned. The revolution cannot be questioned.
Yeah, that's also why I like conservative protests, because even if leftist journalists go out there and they want to ask their questions, there'll be a back and forth. It's just not screaming in people's faces.
Because they actually know what they believe. The left just knows that they should believe, so they just chant, but they actually don't. They can't answer the questions.
In that one protest I was watching, it was a little bit different, and I hope if these protests do continue, maybe the normal people take over and push the radicals out.
Because it would also help the left in the end to push the insane people out. Sirius says, why isn't there princess or presidents interested or involved in this migrant issue? I'm guessing in Europe. Well, because King now, Charles, has been all for it. We showed a clip since
1993.
Even
he was
further.
Talking about bringing Muslims into the EU, into the UK in mass in 93. That was an old clip I found, and I was shocked that he was giving that kind of propaganda back then. I didn't realize that was the origins, because even the Democratic Party in the United States, until very recently, until just after probably halfway through Obama's term, they changed their policies on mass migration.
And obviously way more when Trump actually came in.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that they could break him with, they thought.
Yeah.
But I will say with King Charles, we saw him when he first became king. He decided to go to all the celebrations for all the other religions, and yet the Christian religion he completely forgot about. But he went to Eid and he went to a bunch of different ones. He got his picture taken, and yet for the mass, I think it was during Christmas, the mass and etc. that was supposed to happen, he did show up for some, but he didn't make such a big to-do about him being there and actually espousing the Christian faith that England supposedly has, or the Church of England supposedly has, which he's the head of, which is insane. But it's not convenient for them. A lot of them don't have the power of actual, princes, I would say, at least the royalty, don't have the same power that they once used to. They're mostly just there for decoration. But with the president, because it's convenient to them, at least to the ones that are in power that don't speak up about it, the few that do, Poland, Hungary, etc., is because they actually want to do something about it.
Okay,
because they don't want to capture all the migrants to go vote for them.
Are we going into U.S. politics now?
Yes. So
Okay.
let's move on to the U.S. And starting with one of the bigger stories, and now more updates, is the whole Epstein stuff that's going on. From Global Updates, quote, Epstein's partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, will testify before U.S. Congress on February 9th, so in a few days. Next Monday, she may reveal many criminal secrets about powerful leaders and celebrities, maybe.
This is going to be interesting what starts to happen now, because they got her. It looks like she's willing to flip. There might be a web of people she testifies against, but Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are supposed to testify. And I looked more into that today, and I guess they've been going back and forth on how they want their testimony to go. They don't want Hillary Clinton specifically. She shouldn't, she's not really implicated in the files like Bill is, but they're trying to kind of get her, and she wants this to be televised. So she wants this in a public manner. So I think she's going to blow the whistle on a lot of Republicans. And if she has evidence, good on her, because there's people to get on the Republican side as well as the Democratic side. I say get them, but the only way to get them is to have whistleblowers. So you're going to need like somebody like Hillary that has an axe to grind with Republicans that are in these files, and that's how you're going to out them. And then you're going to have somebody like Ghislaine Maxwell that's probably going to go after Democrats because she wants the deal from the Trump administration, but she's going to have evidence in order to get these convictions. And so I hope we start building out a web, because every person Hillary or Ghislaine Maxwell blows the whistle on is another opportunity to flip that person and get 5 or 6 other people.
And I think it's telling, because once these new batch of Epstein files came out, they said that they were willing to testify well before, and the news came up just a few days before the files were released, and then they changed their mind that they weren't going to testify. So maybe there is something in there that she thinks maybe she can use to testify against or bring down Republicans.
No, we were actually mistaken with that.
Okay.
I looked into it today. And I guess when you're going to testify and you're a senator or a congressman or a high profile politician, the way in which you testify has to be agreed upon. And they've been going back and forth. Finally, the Trump administration kind of came out and said they didn't want to testify. That wasn't the case. She wants to do it in a public manner. So it looks to me like she may want to blow the whistle on people. The Trump administration wants it behind closed doors so they can kind of dictate what kind of trickles out. It looks like she's probably going to testify publicly now. So
I mean, that, or she wants to use testifying publicly to be the victim and to paint herself as the victim, especially now that she came up with this whole MAGA lacks empathy article. She could connect it to that too.
Yeah, so it's going through the negotiation process on exactly how they're going to testify, but it looks like her and Bill are going to have to testify now. So.
And last show, we talked about how Zohran Mamdani's New York City is essentially completely mismanaged now. A bunch of people have passed away because of this mismanagement.
Was a ridiculous clip.
But now let's see what some of his supporters have said before. From American AF, quote, Zohran Mamdani's supporter says the city should make it illegal for businesses to leave because of higher taxes. Let's see what he says.
What do you say to those folks who say, well, if you tax millionaires, they're going to leave the city, and the top 1% pays 40% of the taxes in the city, so what happens if they leave? What's your response?
Well, that's what I would say. It's like we should take their business, and we run it like for the city ourselves.
So if they take their business to Florida, you feel like you can keep it here?
I mean, they can't leave the building. They can't just bring their whole entire workforce to Florida, right? They can't bring all of the resources that they have to build the business here to Florida, right? That's a whole thing. And that's where you would even say we're building a real movement, right, to stop that. We'd also make it illegal for them to actually leave. Right? We would fine them to hell if they're going to try to abandon their property here, right? Because clearly people do need to work, right? People do need to make a living. So
what do you say to this?
It just doesn't make sense, especially in a capitalist system.
That's why free markets are so important and the cornerstone of conservatism.
In his communist pipe dream, I guess he could just take the businesses and run them himself, but.
But we also saw, and I didn't put it in here because I wasn't able to fully verify, but I think Zohran Mamdani said something similar recently, like I saw it a few hours ago. I don't know if they were talking about this clip, but I did see that he had made a statement about businesses that were leaving. But I don't, again, allegedly, and I don't want to say that he fully said it because not fully sure.
I thought oh yeah, the next clip is a Zoran Mondani clip, so maybe it's here.
No, it was that one. We just played it.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Now we're moving on to.
But there was another one I grabbed. Maybe I deleted it because I had so many stories today. Yeah. It was.
I think maybe
Mondani.
it probably was that, but again, I couldn't verify it, so
okay.
That's why I didn't edit in. But let's move on to Trump. From Disco's TV, quote, Trump says he's adjusting his mass deportations policy to only go into cities if the mayors or governors ask and say, please, adding, I did not want to force ourselves into a city, even if their numbers are terrible.
Yeah, and I know I follow this very closely. And on the first show where he had changed his strategy, I was talking about it and people wanted to call me a liar. That's not happening. ICE is still in the city. Then the next episode after that, I talked about it again. But there's so much propaganda from the left that ICE is in the cities. They're doing these hard-nosed tactics. No, Trump has completely flipped the script. He's brought Tom Homan in. He's letting state police do it. He's taking more the Obama approach by going into prisons and things like this because of the bad publicity and because the midterms are coming up. So I just wanted to get it from Trump's mouth himself.
So I want to be clear because it sounds like there is a shift in immigration enforcement here, that there's going to be a shift after Minneapolis. What should Americans expect going forward?
Well, one thing I say to my people, you know, we do a good job, we don't get credit for it. I say they have to ask and they have to say please. When a city is
who
going
has to ask and who has
the
to say
mayor
please?
or the governor, I don't want to go and force ourselves into a city, even if their numbers are terrible. Like, for instance, I got a call from Jeff Landry, governor of Louisiana. He said, we have a big problem. Could you go in and help us with well, let's see, certain sections. I mean, to be honest with you, certain sections of the state, beyond their famous, beautiful city, certain sections of the state. We have done, not only in New Orleans, we've done a really great job in Louisiana, but I was called. I want to be called. Chicago, we could solve the Chicago crime.
Well, on that question, which cities are you headed to next?
We have 5 cities that we're looking at very strongly, but we want to be invited. We will sometimes call the governors.
Are these cities like Chicago, Philadelphia? Are these the cities?
We could straighten out the crime in Chicago. We've already brought it down.
Yeah, and don't say what the cities are, Trump, because they will organize ahead of you coming out, even if you have support.
25% just by being there. We could have Chicago be a safe city, just like D.C. is a safe city, just like all of these places that we've gone to. And I look forward. You know, I didn't campaign on that. I campaigned on law and order, but I didn't think I'd be going into individual cities and making them safe.
Anything else you can tell us about the 5 cities? The 5 cities, anything else? So Americans are ready?
We'll be announcing them very quickly, but we could do something. As an example, I was called by people. San Francisco said, please, we have a Democrat mayor. He's trying very hard. Would you, friends of mine that live there, it's got crime problems. Would you let him do the job and not come in? Let's see how it works.
Okay,
said,
you can leave it there. And he realizes if he does bring in ICE and there is cooperation with the police force, both state and local, it has a mass effect on crime as well. So that's the thing.
And it's also way more convenient because Trump and his administration and ICE were losing the narrative war, or the propaganda war. That's what you want to call it from the left. By doing this, now it's more like, well, what are you now going to complain about?
Well, it's good to learn this in the middle of the winter before a summer of love. They're going to have a big push in that summer just before the midterms. They know if they win the midterms, which the Democrats should win. Every president going back even before I was born has lost the midterms, including Ronald Reagan. So I don't see how Trump's going to win those midterms. That being said, if the Democrats win the midterms, they're definitely going to try to impeach him. So.
But arrests do continue also. Speaking of New York as well, from next order, quote, NYPD has begun making mass arrests after anti-ICE protesters blocked the road outside Columbia University for over an hour.
And again, I want to point out, this is NYPD. This is not ICE officials. All these blue sanctuary cities are now using their own police force, not federal enforcement. So these are the governors and the mayors that are in charge of these police forces.
I mean, this is Mamdani, so we'll see how long it lasts. Actual enforcement.
Placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly conduct. If you do not cooperate and accompany the arresting officer to the physical transport vehicle, or if you resist arrest, you may be charged with additional crime. Since you have refused to leave the roadway, you will be placed under arrest on a charge of disorderly conduct. If you do not cooperate and accompany the arresting officer to the prisoner transport vehicle, or if you resist arrest, you may be charged with additional crimes. Since you have
Okay, and
refused
that's
to leave
good.
the
And now
roadway,
that Trump has kind of given way for these blue sanctuary states to kind of police their own, because he doesn't want the bad publicity, you know there's going to be push in that summer just before the midterm. So you got to think, what is the tactic going to be? They're probably going to get one of these governors or mayors to have one of these cities go out of control and say, we can't handle it. We need you to come in, Trump. And then that's going to sit up for this media propaganda, kind of like what happened in Minnesota. But
Hopefully
Trump
they
was
don't
smart
fall,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah, but at a certain point, Trump will have to go in if the city is out of control. You know they're going to set that atmosphere up in that summer just before the midterms.
But I mean, also it's interesting that that was at Columbia University in New York, and that Columbia allowed these encampments for Palestine and this insanity to go on for years almost on end. The students taking over lecture halls, taking over the dean's office, the president's office, everybody's offices, and taking over the campus. Essentially, they allowed it to a point where actual, again, NYPD did have to come in. But that road, I've been in front of that road. I visited one time a friend that was going to Columbia University. That road is really big. Like the fact that they were blocking, and it's one of the main like ins and outs towards Columbia and to that whole section. So it doesn't look like it's that big, but it is a pretty big, important road for a lot of people and commuters just in general.
Yeah, but it's an interesting situation that's happening now. Trump pulls out, not going into these sanctuary cities. Somebody like Zoran Mondani has to police his own city.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the exact voters that voted for Mondani. So this is a much better tactic by Trump. And again, Trump wasn't getting cooperation from these states anyway. He was failing on his forced deportations. What he was having success on was his remigration program, meaning any illegal immigrant or any immigrant in general can go directly to the airport, collect $2,500 in cash, and get a plane ticket anywhere in the world, including their home country or a country like Canada, if they'll accept them.
Mm-hmm.
So that program has deported 1.5 to 2 million people. His forced ICE program has only done a couple 100,000. So focus on what's working that's not making bad publicity.
They should do a meme about like the Monopoly board saying pass go, collect $2,600, get on a plane, or go to jail and like use the somebody that makes memes go do that. I'm not good at doing that. From Nick Sortor, quote, President Trump made very clear to the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer that if the UK attempts to evict the US from their strategic base on Diego Garcia, the US military will take the island by force.
Yeah, and Diego Garcia was owned by the UK. They're trying to give it back. It's this huge scandal. This would give China huge strategic advantage within the region. So Trump's not going to give it back. It's interesting what will happen here. But you do like the senator because of his accent. I don't like him because he's a neocon, but that
I was going to say John Kennedy is a rhino and a neocon and etc. But he is like my spirit animal when he insults people. I do like when he insults people.
This is the Indian Ocean, Madam President, as you well know. One of the most important parts of the world. Here's China. Here's India. China's trying to dominate all of these sea lanes. Here in the middle of the Indian Ocean is a group of islands called the Chagos Islands. America has a military base, Diego Garcia. It is an extraordinarily important military base. One of the few in the world where our military can reload submarines, houses a number of Navy ships. Our military base there houses long-range bombers that we use to carry out missions around the world. We have to work hard every day to police our military base, not just the base itself, but the land, or rather the water surrounding it, because China knows how important this military base is. The United Nations is saying, United Kingdom, you bad people, give the Chagos Islands back. And President Biden could stop it, and so could Vice President Harris. But they're for it, all in an effort to curry favor.
Okay, and you can. So that was an older clip, but Trump has taken the opposite stance, and he's going to keep the military base there. It's highly strategic. And a lot of people don't agree with a lot of what Trump's doing militarily, but he hasn't started a forever war. And the game plan is always what I said it was going to be, or at least that's what it seems like. They had war gamed over 100 times at the Pentagon how to take on China, how to take on these other countries. But China specifically, they lost every single time until they tried one strategy, and then they won every single time. And that was simply cut off strategic shipping lanes around the world, and they didn't even have to start a war to collapse the Chinese economy. So that specific base is strategically important for shipping lanes.
And speaking of strategy, we just released today a video about the lack of military strategy up in Canada's Arctic. So go watch that one too, because it is an important military and strategic location that Russia or China could take over any moment.
The Canadian Liberals are absolutely hating our channel right now, mainly because I'm a separatist at heart. I've seen Canada's gone too far one way. Canada left me. I didn't leave Canada. I live in Mexico now. I just can't believe how socialist and communist that country has gone. They had a good politician, or have a good politician, in Pierre Poilievre, that knew how to fix things, yet they didn't vote him in. And even if they do vote him in now, I don't think he could get a majority government and actually fix the country. It may be too little too late. I'm a separatist at heart. I'm making that very clear, and I think our videos make that very clear. Canada is failing in a big way, whether it be militarily, whether it be with their mining, whether it be with their lumber, whether it be with their general economy. The direction they're taking that country is into socialism. It's time for Alberta to separate, and it's time for the rest of the country to wake up. Best case scenario, Alberta separates and then Quebec separates. Quebec has so many more seats than Alberta. If they do separate, it actually transitions the entire country back to conservatism, which maybe then they have long-term hope again.
But yeah, the bots and the lefties and I think most Canadians are bots, because they've allowed that to happen to their country and just say yes to everything. But yeah, they don't are turned towards talking about separatism and what's actually going on in Canada. I'm pretty sure they were getting censored in Canada too.
Well, we talked about the investment of the Canadian military. They're trying to invest $9 billion, which is the most they've invested in a long time, but it's literally too little too late. And the way they're investing that money is just to funnel it back into NGOs and corrupt politicians' pockets. They're creating infrastructure projects like roads and bridges, and they're trying to tell Trump, we're spending it on our military. No, you're spending it on infrastructure. You're calling it military. Just when you start digging into the way they're spending this $9 billion, which is the most they've invested, $9 billion and a country that big is just not enough to fix their military, especially when you've neglected it for so long.
And when you could go police one of your biggest ocean borders, which is the Arctic.
You're going to need the U.S.'s help. The largest unprotected border in the world is not the U.S. Canadian border. It's the Canadian-Russia border, which is right to your north. And on top...
Someone called you Sarah Palin for saying that.
What?
Someone on the comments for that video said, oh, yeah, Sarah Palin. Russia's right there. It is. And that normally wouldn't be a problem, because Canada is generally a peaceful country. They don't get involved in wars, except for the most recent war, which is Ukraine and Russia. Per capita, Canada has sent more money than any other country to the Ukraine war, over $9 billion, more than they're investing in their own military. Liberals are trying to say, oh, we're making the largest military investment. Yeah, the thing is, you made even a larger investment into Ukraine. And you're antagonizing the exact country that's directly to your north with a huge unprotected border, which is Russia. Moving back to the U.S., though, we'll continue on the Canada thing when we get to Canada, which we're almost there. But speaking of Melania, and of someone commented that they went to go see it, there's been this whole controversy that she's been using events at the White House to promote it, but she clapped back and said no. From Red Wave Press, she was asked why she felt it was appropriate to use an official White House event to promote the documentary. And this is what she said.
And whatever. Trump gets up there and says a million things. Come on now. I can't believe they know that she's not Trump, and they're hoping to get an I got you or make her feel out of place.
Why do you feel it's appropriate to use an official White House event to promote the documentary? This is not promotion. We are here celebrating the release of the hostages of Aviva and Keith. They were in Washington, D.C., and they called me. They said they would like to come over to thank me and to give hugs, and that's why we are here. It has nothing to do with promotion.
Yeah, she mentions her movie in a press conference,
And they also asked her about it and then said, "Why are you talking about it?" Because the reporters asked her. Oh my God.
Just so we're clear on that movie, because we did do a video about that movie and the scandal kind of surrounding it, and I started digging in around the world. The way they were playing this movie, they were strategically playing it in very limited showings, meaning one day, one showing, so they can say they played the movie and they can say that the movie tanked. Even if
happened to us.
Yeah, and that happened to us here in Mexico. Other countries completely banned the movie, yet still that movie was the most successful documentary in 10 years. If it would have had the release it was supposed to have, like any other normal movie, it would have been probably the highest grossing documentary potentially of all time. Not to say the movie's great. I haven't seen it.
Because we can't.
The one individual actually said it didn't go really in depth, and I could see that maybe it wouldn't.
Yeah, and I can see it being a lot more like girl coded, like what she's wearing, what's happening, the photos, etc.
Let it fall. Let it either stand or fall on its own. Don't try to manipulate these markets and put out hit pieces in the media here in Mexico about how the movie failed.
El Universal, which is like one of the biggest, if not the biggest newspaper here, came out with this big headline on Monday, like the Monday after the release, saying, "Oh, it was only about 5 people per theater went to go see it." Well, yes, when I checked the times, it was only available last Sunday at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., which is lunchtime.
And
three theaters in all of Mexico City, or close to Mexico City. So, of course, it's not going to do well.
Yeah, I wanted to see it the next day, no showings, just that one day.
And at the most expensive, the VIP theaters too, it was only on the VIP theaters, which are, I mean, for regular people and for everybody, more expensive than normal.
Yeah, when I went to go look for it originally, because I was the one that was kind of gathering the stories for the video, I was like, maybe we should watch it. So I looked, I said, oh, they're not playing it. Then you woke up, I said, oh, we're going to do a video about the Melania, just the scandals, because they're not playing it here.
And I said, I want to go see it.
And then she was looking for it, and she goes, oh, they are playing it at this one time on this one day.
Yep.
And then surprisingly, they had hit pieces about it.
It's just the manipulation and the narrative technique that isn't working anymore. I think it's not working anymore, but most people do, unfortunately, still believe it. I mean, here, almost everybody, even conservatives here, have TDS.
It works in countries like Canada and like Mexico, where the mainstream media is still extremely strong and the government is literally funding it. In countries like the United States, the independent media has broken through.
Mm-hmm. But let's talk about one of the most, where the narrative essentially gets cooked, which is California. From Kevin Dalton, quote, hours after Gavin Newsom celebrated a major made-up milestone for California's criminality over budget and delayed high-speed rail, it caught on fire.
Okay, and I actually had the clip. I took it out, but it was Gavin Newsom bragging about the high-speed rail, how they're laying a bunch of track. And what happened? Why did they focus on that? That was a huge corruption scandal. Ben Shapiro recently went on Gavin Newsom's podcast, and one of the big topics he hit on him with was the corruption within this high-speed rail system and how none of it's gotten built. Gavin Newsom is realizing that's going to be a point of attack in the 2028 election, so he's trying to fix that now. But right after he started bragging about it on the news, they had a huge accident.
I mean, unfortunately, but Gavin Newsom doesn't have a good track record with fires as well.
Yeah, but he's smart enough to have that podcast, invite conservatives on, see what their talking points are, and then try to fix those things so they're not going to be able to strategically attack them in 2028.
At the Church Avenue overpass in southeast Fresno.
There's a lot of plywood and lumber that's involved in this.
Workers seen stepping back all unharmed as firefighters attacked from above. The nearby freight railway closed.
We have the railroad tracks here that we ended up having to close down and stop the trains because we have a ladder truck in place that's blocking the tracks.
Fresno Fire's Josh Sellers confirms the fire began just before 9 a.m. Investigators say likely sparked by routine construction. Aerial video from the High-Speed Rail Authority last year appearing to show the impacted structure.
This is the shoring framework that the concrete is then poured in place, and that becomes the permanent structure.
The fire, the latest twist in a controversial project. California High-Speed Rail is more than 6 years delayed and nearly $100 billion over budget.
We care about those counties. We care about folks in Fresno and Kings and Tulare. We care about folks all across the Central Valley.
Just a day before, Governor Newsom praising high-speed rail at an event in Kern County. Officials there opening a new facility to lay down track. 11 years after groundbreaking in Fresno, the project is still not operational.
this is not just a transportation project. This is about reimagining.
Okay, and you can kind of leave it there. That being said, it's going to be very interesting to see if these fires or construction mishaps keep happening. Do they want to delay it so it doesn't actually get done? Because once the project's done, all the numbers are firm, and you're going to be able to see the exact amount of corruption that was done.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially an accident, but I'm going to keep an eye out to see if more accidents continue to happen on that rail project.
And also, before and also in other trains that are in California, I mean, we've also seen the destruction of those railways and how they've become essentially garbage dumps. So I wouldn't be surprised if those catch on fire too, because now there's homeless people, making fires around them. There was news recently that a segment of a train that's already in existence caught fire too. So Gavin Newsom and fires do not mix. Or
All
he
right,
starts.
let's go into Stephen Miller here.
Everything he touches turns to fire. From Real Robert, quote, this is Stephen Miller confirming Democrats extorted 20 to 30 House seats by counting illegal aliens in the census.
Yeah, and we need to clean up these voter rolls. We need to clean up the way these elections are done. There basically needs a voter ID. There needs to be a push for voter ID. I don't know if they're going to be able to get it done before the midterms. And if they don't get it done before the midterms, Trump's almost guaranteed to lose those midterms. And then you just aren't going to be able to get it done because they're going to freeze him out on anything he wants to do before 2028.
But not a digital ID.
No, not a digital ID.
Chicago, New York, Massachusetts. Democrats have gerrymandered the vote beyond recognition to try to maintain their advantage in the House elections. On top of that, let's not forget, Democrats rigged the 2020 census by including illegal aliens. Remember, they sued Donald Trump. They sued the administration. They fought tooth and nail to include illegal aliens in the census. 20 to 30 of House Democrat seats wouldn't exist but for illegal aliens. Texas is taking just a small corrective step against this ocean of fraud, this ocean of abuse by the corrupt Democrat Party, Sean. No way, Chicago.
Yeah, and let's go into the next story because it kind of directly relates to just voter fraud. And it's not to say this was direct voter fraud, but there was a lot of suspicious videos in the 2020 election. I remember they were holding up cardboard over the windows so nobody was able to observe them counting ballots.
So American AF says, quote, throwback to 2020 when a poll watcher confronted a woman with a stack of ballots in a basement away from everybody else.
Oh, my God. Hi. Hey, so you with the elections? You're the Bureau of Elections, right?
Well, I'm just volunteering.
We're just wondering okay, I understand you're volunteering and you're just doing your job. What's all these? Are these mail-in ballots or what's these coming in?
What are these?
Uh-huh.
These are my intake here?
What's that?
My intake as well?
Yeah, because we're wondering why are ballots being handled down here and not up there with the elections. So we're curious about that.
Okay, yeah, the gentleman who's in charge of this, I think, should be right back down.
What's his name?
Gosh, what is his name? You know his name? Are you volunteer or
I'm a poll watcher. Okay. I'm a poll. So what's his name?
I don't know.
Okay. And you're a volunteer? What kind of volunteer are you? With the elections? Okay, I'm just curious. Oh my God.
And a lot of shady things were happening. I personally think there was shady business going on in the 2020 election. But any way we can put pressure on to get voter ID so this doesn't happen in the midterms or in 2028 is very, very important.
Now a few comments we got.
Okay.
Briggs says, I haven't seen any big revelations from the Epstein files. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, some things that come out that weren't fully confirmed or that most people didn't know. But if people were very in and looking into the Epstein files from a long, long time ago into the whole Epstein case, a lot of the things coming out are probably you probably already knew or at least connected it to or were probably kind of aware of it. But what is interesting and what I think is important is I've heard more and more of lefty people. I know people on the left actually talking about it because it is coming out on mainstream news even.
Well, they released a lot of salacious things like politicians in their underwear, things that would be scandalous but not necessarily extremely illegal. And I think they did that intentionally. I think Trump's probably using the Epstein files as leverage. That's why he was able to do so much for the first year. I don't agree with it. I think he should have released them all and exposed everybody. The only hope now to get convictions is literally if Hillary takes that test, goes to testify publicly and starts blowing the whistle on certain people, and then they can flip those people. And then Ghislaine Maxwell also starts blowing the whistle on people. Then they get hard convictions and they offer plea deals for those people to expand out the web. That's the only real hope hope I see here, because I'm not seeing any hard evidence of any like real bad illegal doing. There's all kinds of scandals about whether it's Pizzagate or this or that or alluding to things, but there's no hard evidence for convictions. I think they scrubbed them. I think they still have them. And I think they're going to continue to try to use those files as leverage over other countries and other politicians.
For me, I don't know if they scrubbed them and still have them, but I also kind of believe the theory that they just got rid of it. Like a lot of the most important information was gotten rid of a long time ago.
No.
But they think they still have some.
Your theory just doesn't add up, because you would have said, well, Biden had Biden had the files. So yeah, maybe Biden destroyed the files on the Democrats. So then Trump gets them. And now it's just files on a bunch of Republicans. So now Trump doesn't want to prosecute a bunch of Republicans, but he has leverage over these Republicans. So I don't think he's going to destroy the files. I think he's going to keep them.
No, I mean like the Democrats probably, or some other people.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is Trump has files on Republicans. He's going to use his leverage, and that's how he's trying to keep the GOP on 9.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But let's move on to Canada, because we also, in the U.S. section, almost basically also talked about Canada, but let's go. And Canada. We've been talking a lot about Canada in most of the videos we're releasing now, because it is important and it's getting to a head, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully this Alberta separatist movement grows more and more legs, although I watch a lot about it online and you're seeing a lot of propaganda come out from the other side. But when you watch in a debate or you watch the actual facts come out, they have no way to justify Alberta's stay. I mean, they literally just take almost $300 billion a year away from Alberta, and they say, well, you need to stay. You're giving them nothing back in return.
Yeah,
You're literally just
$5,000 per citizen.
You take from them and then you treat them like a doormat.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Sunshine Baby says, quote, a few days ago, the Conservative Party of Canada sent an MP, member of Parliament, to Washington to negotiate with the Trump administration. J.D. Vance was a roommate with Jamil Jivani while at Yale University. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Hello, Canada. I'm here in Washington, D.C., where I've been having some very productive, promising, and positive conversations with the White House, with the State Department, with senators representing border states that we do a lot of business with in Canada. And I got to tell you, I'm feeling hopeful and optimistic that we can get something really good done for Canadian workers and businesses. Might take some time, but I really believe that the doors are open here. Positive conversations are possible. I have made some jokes about the United States becoming Canada's 11th province. Americans don't seem that interested. They seem happy with their country, but I am really hoping that I can bring my insights and what I've learned here back to Ottawa, share them with Prime Minister Mark Carney and Minister Dominic LeBlanc, and this can be the beginning of a truly non-partisan approach to working with the United States. This is not a partisan issue. It's not about liberals or conservatives. This is about Canadian workers and Canadian businesses and how we can make sure our economy is growing and our economy is thriving. I will be heading home tomorrow, back to Bowmanville, Oshawa North. But before then, I will be meeting with some business leaders that I'm
okay,
really
you can leave it there. And it looks like it was the Big Nothing Burger, and that's because he went to Washington and not Mar-a-Lago. If you want to talk to Democrats, you go to Washington. You want to talk to conservatives, you go to Mar-a-Lago. That's where the business happens. He did it more, I think, for propaganda purposes for the Conservative Party to make them look like they're doing something. I do like Jivani. That being said, you have Danielle. If Pierre Poilievre somehow is not the Conservative leader, Danielle Smith and Jamal there are the best two next candidates. I pray to God they don't put somebody like Doug Ford in there. As of right now, though, Poilievre is doing a great job. That being said, all three of those figures, Danielle Smith, Pierre Poilievre, and Jamal, are all nationalist conservative Canadians. So they don't want to really see Alberta separate, although Danielle Smith is making a path for them to separate. That's why I think a lot of separatists still do like Danielle Smith. They do like Poilievre and they do like Jamal, but I don't want to see something happen where the conservatives come together with the liberals to try to have this Canadian pride. We all need to stand together and make the Albertans feel like they should be shameful and stick with Canada. This could be the beginning of something like that. I really hope that doesn't happen. I could see it happening though.
Mm-hmm. And yet Canada continues, actual government and the federal government does continue to try to make the country go down the drain with stupid decisions. From the real Mr. Bench, quote, Build Canada Homes will now be a crown corporations with no clear mandate for amount of homes to be built, but don't worry, trust them. And on Wednesday, we showed a clip, I believe on Wednesday, we showed a clip of this whole idea that the Liberals had of Build Canada Homes, where they were going to build, they destined how much money? A bunch of money to go towards building homes in different
They were supposed
cities.
to build 500,000 homes. They've only built 9 homes so far. It's
spent 9 million, something like that.
They spend a lot of money. Now they said they're going to get those homes built. They have shovels in the ground. Now they're saying they don't need to actually have a number on how many homes they're going to build. So they want to get rid of actual goals within the project. That being said, this used to be the mayor of Vancouver. He used to come into my bar. He's a complete tool of home prices and home values shot through the roof, so citizens could no longer afford homes in their own city while he was mayor. And now he's trying to do the same thing on the national stage.
But also state control, because it now will be a crown corporations, which means it will now be fully administered by the state, the government.
Why is there no target in terms of amount of units that you want Build Canada Homes to build? Like, how are we supposed to hold this agency to account when we don't even know what the target is?
Well, the accountability piece is very important. Build Canada Homes, as a Crown Corporation, will clearly be accountable to Canadians and government. There aren't top-line targets set for the number of homes to build. There's $13 billion allocated in budget 2025 to Build Canada Homes and Canada Lands Co. combined. That will be leveraged for maximum delivery of affordable housing. The number of homes that we deliver does
$13 billion and they have 9 homes done. 2025 is already done. We're in 2026. And now they think they shouldn't have to have actual numbers of goals that they have to reach. 500,000 homes was the number they said they would reach every year. They reached 9 in 2025.
Rely on how much private capital we can attract and crowd in to finance projects. So we'll be pushing to attract as much private capital as
that's
possible.
good.
And that's what happens when communism and everything becomes now controlled by the state. They say, oh yeah, we'll have way more accountability when we're controlling it. And then they don't. And the money disappears. And because of the bureaucracy they themselves have imposed, they've made it also impossible for themselves and private companies to try to do anything about housing in Canada.
Well, what about the private market? The private market has now collapsed in Canada. Any new builds that were being built have been paused. They're pulling, people are pulling their permits. They don't want to invest in building homes in Canada anymore because they know the market is collapsing. So now the government's trying to fill that hole. But even if the government was able to reach that 500,000 homes, it's nowhere near where they need to be. They need the private market in there. The private market has completely collapsed. And now that they're saying, we're going to build 500,000, you've only built 9. This is ridiculous.
And this goes to basically all the comments that we've been getting when we're talking about separatism. But from the Rise of Alberta, quote, be proud to be Canadian isn't an argument, especially when Canada no longer resembles the country many grew up in. When a country stops representing you, you're allowed to ask hard questions. Calling independence treason is how you avoid debating the actual issues.
Crowder's a former Canadian. He now lives in the States. He's giving up his citizenship in Canada. He's willing to speak up against this because he has an American audience. We have somewhat of a Canadian audience. I'm not going to back away from this subject. I believe Alberta should stand on its own 2 feet. I am a Canadian separatist. I would like to see Canada go conservative after Alberta and possibly Quebec leaves. There is an opportunity for that because Quebec has so many seats in this that the country would go conservative if they ever separated.
To say, treason. You should be proud to be Canadian. Why? Why should I be proud to be Canadian if this doesn't resemble the country that I grew up in? That's what they're saying. They have the right to ask that question. Why they have the right to determine their future.
Why be proud to be Canadian when the rest of Canada is not proud of you? You know, in Alberta, they're so browbeaten by the rest of the country, not even, joking. They really do feel a certain way about them. They feel like they're lesser than them.
It's not the same country, and I understand why they don't feel represented, and I think they should leave. Albertans, do it. And I tell you what, if you do that, the United States has your back. Just say, treason.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, almost any Canadian that's left the country like we have, like Crowder has, feels that same way. Says it's time to separate, even if Pierre Poilievre wins an election. I'm glad for Canada to go conservative, but it's still time for Alberta to stand on its own 2 feet. Too much has been taken away from it. It's been treated like a doormat. It has a good structured economy and enough leadership within the province that it can become its own country. Now is the time.
And Canada has betrayed itself and its own citizens. So to talk about treason because you're leaving, it's no, people are realizing that what the country that they helped build and they helped live in and that they were proud citizens of no longer exists because of everything they've done. And even for, and we've talked about this too, even for immigrants, migrants that either just got there or got there a long time ago are also seeing this, and they're saying this, and this is what I said, this is what I think, I'm from Mexico. This is not what I was told it was going to be. It was good when I got there, and then I saw the destruction, the slow and then quick destruction of Canada, and it became the place that no longer was what I was supposed to be going towards and trying to build a life in. So even for migrants, I think it is time to realize you're just spending your life and wasting your life away in a country that no longer is what you were sold, essentially.
Yeah, now I follow this issue more than any other issue probably. I've watched one debate on this issue, and it wasn't a debate. The person that won was the separatist from Alberta, just ran circles around, and by the end of the debate, the guy goes, yeah, but I just don't want Alberta to leave. Yeah, because you're taking $300 billion from Alberta every year and then telling them how to run their province, which is completely antithetical to the way they want to run their province.
And to what to what Canada used to be.
They're not going to have the nationalists that want to hold Canada together aren't going to have any real debates on this subject because there's just no way to frame this that Alberta should stay.
And it also angers
in a good faith way.
Yeah, and it also angers me because it feels like I wasted 13 years of my life trying to pursue a dream that I was told I was able to have, the Canadian dream, and get a job and have a family, build a house. And year after year, I realized that dream was diminishing more and more by the government and the people of Canada itself, that thing that they were supposed to be so proud of didn't exist. And it angers me that, again, it feels like almost I wasted 13 years of my life.
It benefits the elites and it benefits the government of Canada for Alberta to stay so they can keep siphoning their wealth away. It benefits Alberta in no way, shape, or form. Alberta really, really needs to leave right now. What happened with Brexit? Nationalists that want to hold Canada together are trying to point at that, saying, oh, something similar will happen. I don't think what happened with Brexit is necessarily a bad thing. The problem is the way the UK government continued to run that country into the ground after they did separate. Mm-hmm. They're in a better position being separate from the EU right now if they can grow some balls, grow some spine, and actually start rebuilding that country. But it's going to take a lot of hard work and ingenuity. You need to stop flooding your country with immigrants.
And actually respecting your citizens and making all your socialist infrastructure actually work or change the way it works, etc. But the communist takeover does continue, literally, and similar to what happened in the UK. From Table Salt, quote, Canada sells out to the CCP. I would add even more. Energy and Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson won't rule out allowing Chinese state-owned companies from buying Canadian oil companies. From CTV News, Energy Minister, again, won't rule out Chinese state-owned companies from buying majority stakes in Canada's oil patch because they want to continue destroying them. And where are most of those oil patches too?
Yeah, this is a huge problem in Canada. I actually brought this article up. You can bring the article back up if you want.
No, I closed it.
Okay, you can leave it. I actually brought this article up to talk about, I used to work in oil. I used to work in mining. And especially when it comes to mining, 70% of the world's mining headquarters are based out of Canada, specifically Vancouver. Only in name are they owned, are the Canadian owned, and they're based in Canada. The Chinese actually own everything. They've come in and they've completely hollowed out these companies. These are Chinese owned companies with a Canadian label on them. They're trying to change legislation so they can get rid of the mining unions to bring in Chinese workers and replace Canadian workers with Chinese workers. And that's how the Chinese work in Canada. They come in, they buy up entire industries, and then they pay politicians off to change the legislation so that they can then bring in Chinese workers.
And also have some sort of stake from the CCP itself within those companies.
Yeah.
And that's what is also infuriating, for example, seeing that, Canadian mining company takes over Chile or whatever. It's like, in name, it is a Canadian company, but it is controlled by China and has a CCP envoy and minister working within it as well.
Well, that's why the Chinese love to do that so much because, when it has a Canadian label, when it comes into these countries, nobody's concerned about it. Nobody's thinking China. That's exactly what it is, and it's not just the mining industry.
But now let's see the take of the younger generation, the Gen Z, who will actually be even more affected by this than the ones they calling separatists traitors, because a lot of them are boomers that, I mean,
Yeah, and
put a whole stake in the country.
the way she describes this is perfect. I mean, I've seen this exact same thing happen when I was there.
My mom came by herself to Canada with $40 in her pocket, and my dad came with his dad with $800 to their name. And both of my parents worked at least 2 full-time jobs each while I was growing up so that they could provide for me and my siblings to have a successful and bright future here in this country. I grew up with the lesson being that if you go to university, doors will open for better career opportunities and higher wages for you. But I'm here at nearly 24 years old, and I have $40,000 in student debt, and I'm trying to Tetris my finances every single month so that I can pay my bills. And the Canada that I grew up with during my childhood is nowhere to be found. If I want to go downtown by myself, I'm putting my safety at risk because of the violence coming from those who are suffering from the worst consequences of the safe supply epidemic that Trudeau put into place. And if I want to eat fresh fruit or vegetables, I better already have it growing, know someone who does and that I can trade with, or I have to count every single penny in my wallet to make sure that I can still eat for the rest of the month. I have to cross my fingers every time I turn my car ignition on that it's not going to break down, because a new car is unaffordable and poses its own challenges with transportation. And the fact that I rent a studio without roommates is within itself a rare commodity and one of the only spaces that I feel safe in physically. In university classrooms, group discussions and class presentations are optional because professors don't want students to feel undue stress or anxiety, and most people my age don't even seem to have the reading comprehension or critical thinking skills needed to navigate this world effectively. It used to be socially acceptable to have controversial opinions and be respected and included in conversation because we wanted to have a variety of perspectives to hear from. Now, if you mention the word conservative, you're labeled a social pariah and a liability. Questioning the liberal agenda is a cardinal sin, and advocacy for religious freedom is only admirable if it doesn't include Christianity. Social media has become the weapon of choice.
You can leave it there. That being said, and this is why with the Alberta separatist movement, there's a real chance to kind of save yourself from this direction Canada is going. And they've been going on it for almost 15 years now, with multiple elections of Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney. They're very clear the direction they're going. They want to go in the direction of China, in the direction of socialism, and eventually in the direction of communism. You're not going to be able to vote on a federal level to change those things. Even if you do, it's going to most likely be a minority conservative government, which is going to be frozen out of actually making real change. With Alberta, it's so many of the citizens are conservative, even if you don't necessarily want to separate. If you just don't want to go in the direction of Canada, vote for the separation, because it's an actual chance to stand on your own 2 feet and not have your future dictated by globalist elites.
And unfortunately, as that young lady was saying there, I mean, she's Gen Z and she's seen the destruction. I mean, she got to see and witness as she grew up also the destruction of the country. I agree with all the things she said there. I've lived through basically what she's saying there as well. And especially as a woman, as a female that is supposed to be so protected in Canada, feeling completely unsafe to walk the streets even after 4 p.m. because insane people are out there. And even during the day, I got spat in just crossing a street. And what I was going to say is that she was making a very important point about social media there at the end, where it has become a weapon of choice for those that want to continue to instill this change. But a lot of them are older generations that benefit still from all of these changes. And the ones that I saw most sheepishly just defending what was going on in the country, the ones that call Alberta separatist traitors, are the older generations that continue to benefit under the system that they built, while they're leaving all of their young people, all the young Canadians, and throwing them down by the wayside, not caring about what future they're leaving for them, because a lot of them didn't even have the kids. But for those that did, there seems to be no concern for those that will have to inherit all of the mistakes that they continue to defend tooth and nail, apparently.
Well, the EU, the UK, even Canada, the United States did all the military spending and did all the heavy lifting, and it gave a lot of extra money to these countries, and they built welfare states off of these things. They moved towards socialism more and more every year, but especially Canada. And even though America took most of the military protection for Canada, Canada didn't necessarily need it because it wasn't causing a lot of enemies. That being said, They did build a welfare state. They're going head on into socialism. The way they afford that is through Alberta. If Alberta pulls the pin and separates, that's going to explode their socialist dream of what they want Canada to become. Yes, Canada will be hard left at that after that point because so many conservative voters are leaving. That being said, there's no way to pay for this socialist utopia after Alberta leaves. So it may force Canada to stand on its own 2 feet and actually start going for its natural resources, going after its natural gas, things like this.
Maybe, but as of now, we continue to see the ridiculousness. We did talk about how they try to change street names to benefit the hoax of the First Nations and their...
and you can just play that clip here.
Yes, but okay. Should I read it?
This is the last article for the Canadian section, and then we'll go into comments and then the EU.
But this part is important. The whole, this is not satire.
Hence the name Eta Nona Wastina. It translates to where they lived good and beautiful lives. Learning to say the name is just a small way we can all be accountable to healing our relationship with our nation's First Peoples. So let's go. Try it with me. Eta Nona Wastina. Eta Nona Wastina. Eta Nona Wastina.
It does look... Oh, that's it.
No, that looks, I mean, that's evil.
It really does look like satire, but it's not. And that's not even the worst of the name changes. They name changed it another street to symbols that aren't even on a keyboard. So residents were complaining they can't pay their credit cards, they can't pay their bills because they can't type in their street address anymore. And when they try to give it over the phone, the people can't type it into the computer. So they're saying, well, we literally can't send you a bill. You're going to have to get a P.O. box.
That was in Vancouver. That was the one I was talking about, Trudge Street. It used to be called Trudge Street, one of the wokest districts, I would say, of Vancouver. And yeah, they've done this and they continue to do this. I mean, a bunch of universities, and I went to one, changed a lot of the names also to these impossible names and would get mad if you called it what it used to be called, or if you just refused to call it or try to even pronounce it. That was an offense because they've continued with this whole land acknowledgement and money wasting also on a lot of this hoax and mass graves hoax that initiated most of this.
Okay, let's go into any comments and the EU.
Sirius said, "Esa was titima."
Well, and that's not even the worst of it. Like I said, what happens when you literally can't type it in to pay your bills because they're using symbols that don't actually exist in the real world?
Change it to better the pronunciation. I don't even know why they do this. But yes, let's move on to the EU, which is also insane by itself. Oh, we just got a question that was for the for the Canada section, so we'll answer that one. Luna says, what do you think about the Toronto police news? I feel like this is the most discussed thing at the moment.
Yeah. Oh God, what was it again? That they were helping organize crime. They were funneling information to them, and there was multiple murders because of it. I believe. I think that was the one. I didn't grab it today, but yeah, that's just one of so many scandals. They have Chinese police departments in Canada that are literally intimidating Chinese citizens. Also, the Chinese Communist Party now has to approve any citizen that's going to move to Canada for immigration purposes, and the Canadian government has to get it approved through the CCP, which is ridiculous because it used to be the opposite. People used to flee to Canada because they were fleeing the CCP, not because they had approval.
Vancouver Police Department has also been found to protect assailants that align ideologically with what they think they're supposed to be protecting instead of citizens and the people.
Well, if somebody breaks into your home, you can't defend yourself, you'll be arrested. I mean, any number of things. I just couldn't live in that country anymore.
And Luna says yes. Yes, that's what they meant. But yes, moving on to the EU now. And the insanity from Britain is broken. Most accurate name ever.
We can go back to that when I was when I first, because I worked in a bar and a nightclub, so I did know quite a few shady characters, and the one guy I knew did have the police force on the payroll, and yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. Literally envelopes of cash to police officers on a Saturday night like crazy as they're walking down the street, just open in public.
But I also remember you told me in Vancouver that whenever people were, for example, breaking into cars on Granville Street, which is like it used to be the party district, now it's a pretty dangerous place. I would not suggest any tourist or person to go into. But when people were, for example, trying to break into cars or homeless people with mental issues were trying to sleep on the businesses' doors, if you would call the police, they would say, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it, essentially. I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, you put it much too easy.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we can move on.
But Luna says,
well, if somebody's breaking it, for instance, one bar I was a security at had a parking lot attached to it, so I wasn't actually required to monitor it, but I was just on my break and somebody broke into a car, so I took them, slammed them to the ground, held them there. It took half an hour for the police to come. The police said, oh, we have to let him go. He didn't actually steal anything from inside the car, and he did less than $900 worth of damage. Yeah, he goes, we should actually arrest you for it, but we're not. And I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And then the bar across the street had a homeless, their back door, one of the homeless people put a full mattress in front of it so they couldn't open it. They called the cops. The cops said, we're not legally allowed to touch any of this stuff.
That's what I didn't remember that bit, but yeah. Luna says, looks like all the Toronto Police Department is corrupt. And I wouldn't be surprised.
I know firsthand for sure the Vancouver Police Department is just taking envelopes of cash on Granville Street in front of clubs, like from shady characters that are gang related.
So, unfortunately, not surprised, but
yeah. Well, and now you have Mark Carney making a deal with the CCP, and yeah, it's a lot of business dealings on the front end, but when you dig into that contract that he's just made, there's intelligence gathering and intelligence sharing with the CCP. No wonder the United States is going to be a little bit angry about it.
I mean, we could talk about Canada that whole stream, but
well,
let's move on to...
I would say, and yeah, ideologically, they're so far left, it's ridiculous. I disagree with that, but just because they're so far left doesn't mean they have to do everything so moronically. I mean, you have a far left lunatic running Mexico as well, but she's actually cooperating with the United States for the benefit of at least the future of the country somewhat.
Somewhat, yeah. But again, I mean, it is a kind of an oxymoron saying that the left shouldn't be doing things moronically. I mean,
well, the left used to be normal. Playbook. The left used to be normal. I used to,
But then they decided to go full communist, and here's where we are. From Britain Has Broken, quote, France also is about to allow migrants to stand and vote in elections. The French Parliament Law Commission has adopted a bill allowing non-EU foreign nationals to vote and stand in municipal elections.
Yeah, and the Western European nations are all now doing this. Spain just did this. They're allowing legal and illegal migrants to vote in their elections because they can't win elections otherwise. And they've seen most of Eastern Europe has already gone to the right. So they want to make sure they can rig these elections somehow. And their solution is migrants.
And legalizing it so you can't say that they rigged it.
Je mets aux voix la proposition de loi dans son intégralité.
You can leave it. But this is making headline news, especially after what Spain just did with the 500,000 migrants that are now going to sway their election.
The 500,000. Speaking of elections, though, this story does continue to be incredibly important. From Eva Vlardinger-Brock, I think, quote, these files are a bombshell thanks to the judiciary GOP. We now have proof that the EU has been actively censoring legal content that goes against their agenda and that they interfered in the last 8 European elections, including the Dutch elections of 23 and 25, by meeting with social media platforms to pressure them to censor political speech.
Yeah, and the elections they rigged was, stay up top. The elections they rigged was between 2023 and 2025. This is still going on, but this was the rise of the right in mainly Eastern Europe, and this is why they've now been busted. They need to figure out another way. That's why they're in a panic. That's why they're passing these laws to make sure legal and illegal migrants can now vote in Western Europe. They need to keep control of the EU before it goes completely right-wing.
And also continuing to pass legislation to censor, and now especially online things. Leading up to the Dutch elections of 2023, the EU Commission even made the Dutch Interior Ministry, Hugo de Jong, a trusted flagger entitled to make priority censorship requests under the DSA.
Yeah, and I talked about every single one of these rigged elections. It was going on openly. Conservative channels and independent media was pushing this, but now that the files are actually out, the United States has kind of blown the whistle on them, and it's going to be hard for them to hopefully do this in the future, but now they're going towards a new strategy. Just take the mask off, say we want migrants in the country, and they can vote.
And the DSA is a Digital Services Act from the EU, but what kind of political speech, and I do think it's important to know, did they want to censor? Populist rhetoric, anti-government, anti-EU content, anti-elite content, political satire, anti-migrant and Islamophobic content, anti-refugee content, and anti-migrant sentiment, anti-alphabet community content, and meme subculture.
That's literally almost every section we have in our daily show.
Basically. In other words, anything that goes against the agenda, anything remotely right-wing or conservative, and anything pertaining to the disastrous migrant situation we have here in Europe, and essentially shut up and don't complain because we need to continue winning.
Yeah, and this is the third time I've kind of shown this story from a little bit of a different view over the last 3 days. I think it's very important to understand what happened, how they were rigging elections, and now why they're trying to legalize migrants to vote in their country that are non-citizens. It's because this scam has kind of been revealed, and they got to come up with a new one before they lose the rest of Europe to the right.
And importantly, X was the one platform that did not cooperate and is also now being fined 120 million euros under the Digital Services Act, which is how they plan to use it.
It's also, this story is very important as well, because when I would talk to liberal friends about this, I would talk about each individual election as it was happening, and they just didn't want to hear it. They didn't believe it. Oh yeah, well, Russia is interfering. This is happening. That's happening. They just didn't believe it. Now it's out in the open. They were openly rigging these elections. These are the 8 elections I called out as they were happening. So the left is at a point now, they don't care if they have to rig elections. I think even normal liberals just see the EU slipping away, and that was their light on the hill for liberal globalism.
And free speech and dissent is one very important component of what even they always say they're defending. It is democracy, and being able to have an opposing side and keep those checks and balances is important for the functioning of a quote-unquote democratic country or countries. Another section and something else that keeps the citizenry and the population free and fed is farmers, and this is why they're also trying to go fully against the farmers and independent ones especially. Mario ZNA says, quote, the EU is preparing to completely wipe out European farmers. Ursula von der Leyen is heading to Australia to sign a trade deal that, after Mercosur, will cripple European agriculture. This is no longer politics. What Brussels is doing is textbook tyranny. And not only have they done this, but imposing basically every single thing that they can to avoid and to stop independent and actual farmers from continuing to be able to farm. Europe.
They've already crippled EU farmers. They have a war on farmers. They've changed all kinds of legislation. They're literally legislating independent farmers out to give way to just a few industrialized farms, but they've outsourced their farming to other regions and other countries. They kind of deal with South America, that they'll get most of their food from South America, and they've taken all tariffs off from South American food, basically undermining their own national farmers. Now they're trying to do the same thing by making sure they have a backup with Australia. They needed to invest in their own farmers. European farmers were some of the best in the world, especially the independent ones.
Mm-hmm. And Eva Vladingerbrook, I can never say her name, was one of those figures, an actual useful social media political commentator and influencer that helped with the fight, the Dutch fight for the farmers. And she essentially, I think, gave a lot of very important information that was also censored by the European Union within this whole scheme. Another country that is insane within the European Union is Spain. And we have also been reporting quite a bit on Spain.
And we don't need to actually play the clip on this because it's in Spanish.
Marinalfo says, quote, Yolanda Diaz, the vice president of Spain, says, I have left X. Anyone who remains there is feeding the politics of hate. We are not vassals of Trump and Musk. She is also requiring the big tech companies to pay taxes and respect labor rights.
Big tech companies don't exist within your country. They're in an online space. And now you're saying every online company needs to pay taxes to your country, and then every single other EU country. This would bankrupt every business. This would undermine capitalism at its very core. The beginning of what she said, I can agree with. She left X, and that's what people should do if they don't agree with the platform. That's what the left told the right to do. That's what the right did. They made their own platforms. Then they tried to ban those platforms. Then they bought X. They don't like the fact that we have any kind of space, and the fact that X is not a right-wing platform. It's literally 50-50 if you look at the statistics. They're angry because it used to be 75% lefties, 25% conservatives, and now it's shifted to an actual fair and balanced platform.
And let's not forget the importance of Elon Musk buying X and being able to release the Twitter files, which back then, it completely exemplified the fact that governments were trying to censor, were trying to manipulate all these platforms and continue to do so. Also with Mark Zuckerberg coming out and saying that, yes, FBI agents visited him during the Biden era and asked him to censor just certain points of view.
Well, that plan had failed. What was happening is the EU and other countries were working through the Biden administration. The Biden administration had backdoors into Twitter and would tell them exactly who to censor and who to ban. They would do that with Twitter, X, Google. I mean, every social media platform. The Twitter files completely expose that. Now, if the Democrats get it back into power, they can't use that same strategy because eyeballs will be all over them. But what they are trying to do is use the Digital Services Act to punish American companies through fining. Right now, Donald Trump is kind of holding them back, and through the Granite Act is pushing back on these billion-dollar fines coming from the EU, Canada, and other countries. But if Gavin Newsom or Democrat gets in there, that's going to be the strategy. That's going to be how they take away free speech and they re-liberalize these platforms.
And especially in Spain, we've also played a bunch of clips from President Pedro Sanchez at Davos, but then also at other meetings, now fully saying we're going to censor and we're going to block, for example, under 16s, but then also everybody else. And we want to go after X specifically. They have continued to say that. And now the vice president too.
Yeah. Let's go into Latin America, and then we're going to go over to RUMBLE.
And only one story here, but from our illustrious president here in Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. From U.S.A, quote, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum declares on Constitution Day that Mexico does not kneel, does not surrender, and is not for sale. She said Mexico will not go back to being anyone's colony or protectorate. They're also doing the whole colonization thing because, once again, Morena, Claudia Sheinbaum, and the president before that are very, very on the left. And Mexico will never give up its natural resources. That is why, with fortitude and faithful to our history, we say firmly, Mexico does not yield, does not kneel, does not surrender, and is not for sale. Long live the Constitution of 1917.
They run their own oil company called Pemex here already. It's a nationalized company. It's completely corrupt. They're running it into the ground. The fact that it is even able to still operate is a major surprise. They need help with their natural resources, but they need to. The problem is when they allow these corporations to come in, they know these Mexican politicians are corrupt and they're going to line their pockets and basically sell their country out.
What's even more insane is that she said Mexico will never give up its natural resources. It has just been discovered and continued to be discovered that Mexico has been sending oil to Cuba for the past many, many years, not to the citizens. It's not for our benefit. It's going to the Cuban dictatorship that they need to support each other. And the lefty communist side of Latin America has been supporting each other for so long.
Oh, and they're not paying for it.
Exactly. And Cuba owes us, I don't even know how many billions of pesos at this point from all the oil that we've been sending in humanitarian aid. President Trump came in and told Claudia Sheinbaum, you have to stop sending this oil to Cuba because come on. And Claudia Sheinbaum continued to say, no, we're not doing it. No, we're not doing it. Journalists actually came out with numbers and with proof to say, yes, you have been doing it for X amount of time. They owe us X amount of money. And then Claudia Sheinbaum wants to continue sending humanitarian aid. So the fact that she's saying that the country is sovereign, no, it's being controlled by the lefty communist dictatorships of all of Latin America.
Yeah, I will say this for if you compare her to Canada, because it's a good comparison because they're both far left radicals. She is Trump has much more leverage over her, so she's able to be pushed to the center much more, which is benefiting the country a lot. Canada is just going to literally fall off a cliff if they keep going in that direction, and they don't care what Trump says. It's elbows up to the very end until the entire country burns.
And with Mexico, the corruption has been so embedded within government that it is not just Morena and Claudia Sheinbaum, but it's every single other government that has had ties to cartels and has things that Trump can use as leverage against them. And just now we saw that even though Claudia Sheinbaum said there was no corruption within Morena or their officials, they just captured the first governor of a state that was completely embedded within cartels. And now they're having to come out and actually say it basically all thanks to Trump and the pressure that he's put to our government.
Okay, thanks for tuning in. We're going to go over to RUMBLE now for the last few stories. We actually got quite a few. I think we got 4 stories we're going to do over there. They're a little bit too hot for YouTube censors.
Yes.
And if you're not subscribed, please do so.
We'll see you over at RUMBLE in a few seconds.